guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello, 6 o'clock on the dot. It is a Monday morning. It is the 8th of January, wherever you're watching, wherever you're listening, however you're receiving us. This is Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster here on GB News.
And here's what's leading the news this morning. A petition calling for the former Post Office boss Paula Vernels to be stripped of her CBE has surpassed 1 million signatures following the Horizon scandal revelations.
Are we living in a broken Britain? Strike action, fuel costs, migration numbers take their toll on our lifestyle. As Labour says, the Prime Minister is putting vanity before country by delaying an election.
The deadline is expiring for Birmingham City Council to outline a credible plan to address a budget gap totalling £300 million. That's as other bankrupt local councils across the country are pleading for more cash.
Yeah, I'm live in Birmingham this morning as people here wait to find out exactly where those £300 million worth of savings have come from. I'll have the latest.
Happy Divorce Day. The first Monday of January, the first working Monday, as today is, traditionally sees a spike in the number of people wanting to separate. A relationship expert gives us her take.
What's going to happen is that actually there will still be a large number of people, irrespective of the cost of living crisis, which is hugely florid at the moment, who will just simply say, emotionally, this is too much of a toll for me to take.
And we'll be crossing live to Los Angeles for all the latest on the Golden Globes, with Oppenheimer winning big. But what sort of night was it for Barbie?
Rubbish.
Not quite, maybe.
It was. Anyway, haven't seen it though. Oppenheimer. I haven't Barbieheimer yet.
Desperate. No, I know. We need to Barbieheimer. Should we do that?
No.
Oh.
I was tempted a few times. There was on streaming. I was going to watch Oppenheimer over the weekend. Have you seen the price they charge for these things?
I thought it wasn't out on a certain channel till the spring.
Oh, it is. It is. No, it's out.
Oh.
$17.99.
Oh, right. Well,
no, so it can stay unwatched. Paul Coyte's here with your sport. You pay $17.99 for him at least.
It may be 17 quid for Oppenheimer, but that's £1 for every hour the actual film goes on for. So that's the reason. That's the reason it's so expensive, my friend. Liverpool put Arsenal out of the FA Cup third round.
What a game that was.
Oh, they just can't score though. Arsenal can't score no matter how they try.
Yeah. The VAR, everything.
Very, very sad. And Maidstone United are the lowest ranked team still in the FA Cup. The draw is just before the Manchester United-Wigan game, which is tonight at 8 o'clock.
How low do you go with Maidstone? Where are they?
They are 6th tier. Sixth tier.
Yeah.
Put it this way, we may get a game. That's where they are.
Well, let's hope we draw them.
Well, you've got to beat Wigan first.
Yeah, got to beat Wigan.
Yeah.
Wigan doing quite well in the first division, isn't
Yeah,
they?
the thing is, well, Wigan, they've had a couple of bad results. It shouldn't be a problem, but it is away, so it is at Wigan.
You know, people will say the cup is dead and whatever, not what I saw at the weekend.
Absolutely.
Good
No, I love
stuff.
it. And you know what Man United is? It's potential banana skin is what it is. It's potential banana skin.
I wouldn't mind a banana now. Do I like banana and toast?
gosh.
Yeah, that'd be
Here we
nice.
go.
Yeah.
Do you like banana and toast?
I love banana toast with a touch of cinnamon as well.
No, you have to spoil it.
Sprinkled
You have to spoil it.
She's so posh with her cinnamon on the banana.
Something posh about cinnamon.
There is. You bring in your middle-class ways and you just can't see it. Nobody has
Speaking
cinnamon.
Of sprinkling, time to move on. Was there a sprinkling of snow where you were, or indeed a frost? The big freeze is on its way. Marco Britannia with your forecast this morning.
Hello, good morning. We've got a frosty, foggy, locally icy start to the day today with some wintry showers towards the southeast of England. There will be plenty of fine weather as we head into the afternoon. I'll have all the details later.
Still ranting on about cinnamon. Is cinnamon posh? I'm sorry, forgive me.
Yes.
I just thought cinnamon was fairly normal.
It's not fairly normal to normal people. But, like if you're, will not go on, but you just don't see it. Cinnamon. Anyway. You can join any of our discussions.
What do you think about
I actually
these hot
don't like
topics?
cinnamon. Cinnamon's good for you.
Is it?
Yeah, I think it's good for inflammation and things like that, yeah. But let us know, are you a cinnamon person or not? See, for instance, I think apple tart is spoilt by cinnamon.
Oh, no.
People
So
have-
I like to mix cinnamon. I actually have a little bowl mixed with sugar and cinnamon, which I'd put on eggy bread, for example.
Really?
Which you could have with bacon. And I like a bit of cinnamon on banana on toast. But maybe I'm weird. It turns out probably am. Send your thoughts on gbviews@gbnews.com, or you can tweet us at
There's
gbnews.
something different about you today.
Oh, I knew this wouldn't take long.
No, just
My hair gone a bit cinnamon.
It'll come to me. That's eating cinnamon has done that to you. Here's the sting. OK, what are we going to talk about? Pressure mounting on the Prime Minister to finally compensate all those people wrongly accused, all those postmasters, as hundreds of them still wait a settlement, they still wait justice, whatever form that will take. And then there's those smiling bosses who ran the post office at the time.
Well, overnight, more than 1 million people have now signed an online petition calling for Paula Vanells, who led the post office when submasters were unfairly prosecuted, to be stripped of her honour. So far, only a fraction of those convicted have been cleared, but ministers are set to meet today. The idea is to consider measures to exonerate all those involved in what's been called the biggest miscarriage of justice in recent British history. Well, let's bring in our digital political editor, Millie Cook, to talk about this morning. Good morning to you, Millie. Look, it's all very well, the Prime Minister calling this a huge miscarriage of justice, but what is being done about it?
Good morning. Yes, so ministers will meet today to discuss measures to really bring justice for the victims of this scandal. Between 1999 and 2015, more than 700 people were convicted of crimes, and just 93 people have been pardoned. So today, Kevin Hollinrake will meet with Justice Secretary Alex Chalk. At the moment, ministers, Rishi Sunak confirmed yesterday, they're looking at exonerating every single victim of this scandal. They're also looking at stripping the post office of its role in the appeals process, because since the first victims of the scandal were convicted, the post office has been managing the entire process. So they're looking at moving that towards the Crown Prosecution Service. So ministers, the meeting's been brought forward by a week. So it really demonstrates the urgency of this problem. But they will meet today to discuss the proposals. So far, the government's handed out around £125 million worth of compensation to the victims, but obviously only 93 people have really received some form of justice in what Rishi Sunak admitted was the biggest miscarriage of justice in recent times.
What's he going to do about it? That's the whole question. What can he possibly do about it? You know, Millie, I find it sad to think that we're only really talking about this because of an ITV drama, and suddenly it brings it all home to everyone. And also, I would say this to the viewers and listeners. This is the first instance, big instance, of AI gone wrong. That we're supposed to trust artificial intelligence. Artificial intelligence knows better than us. except that it doesn't. And we do all this talking, Millie, about who's to blame. Is it the post office? Is it the government? Who? But Fujitsu, I think it's Fujitsu who were behind it, were they? You know, we need to hear more about whoever developed the actual programme and what they're going to do in terms of compensation.
Yeah, there very much have been calls for Fujitsu to take over paying out the compensation, because obviously it's a huge amount of money that's being put pressure on the post office for them to pay. But Fujitsu is worth more than £50 billion. It's a multinational organisation. It's got more than 7,000 employees in the UK. So it is currently under a lot of pressure to pay out on these kind of postmasters who are struggling, and a lot of them as well have been financially ruined because they've been forced to pay out of their own pocket for the allegedly siphoned off money that they were alleged to have taken from the post offices, wrongly so.
Can I ask you about the role of the Lib Dem leader in all of this, Sir Ed Davey? And we talk about the pressure growing on Fujitsu under Horizon and the pressure on the Prime Minister, but what about Ed Davey? Is he culpable in some way?
I mean, he's certainly taking a lot of heat at the moment. There have been calls for his job in recent days. Ed Davey obviously served as Minister for the Post Office between 2010 and 2012. And there have been suggestions that he sort of fobbed off victims of the scandal. He was repeatedly warned about issues in the technology, the accounting system that caused so many people to be wrongly convicted of siphoning off money from the post office. Ed Davey says he's deeply sorry for what happened. He also says that he was deeply misled by the post office. So he's been very much distancing himself from the scandal and suggesting that he sort of did nothing wrong, he was misinformed. But no, absolutely, there's a lot of pressure on Ed Davey to come forward and really explain exactly what he did and didn't know as so many people were being convicted.
Thank you very much indeed. This is the whole thing. I mean, if the post office are saying, well, the system says this. If the people who supplied Fujitsu, the whole programme, they say this is the way it works, this is the way it's supposed to be. People just believe whether you're a judge in court, you're told this system works. Why shouldn't you believe what is coming from this? And I go back to this whole point about artificial intelligence and the reassurances we're given, it's all going to be fine. It's all going to be fantastic. Well, it hasn't been in this situation. And what form does compensation take for the people who have taken their own lives, whose lives have been ruined, people who have died before the compensation has come through, if anything? And there's so many people who aren't even applying for compensation.
Yeah, and I think this ITV documentary has even dredged it up so that more people have come forward, because this was the big thing in this story. A lot of people were so mortified and ashamed, even though they were innocent. They weren't talking to other postmasters about this who were feeling exactly the same. And it's only as time has passed that they have created this kind of cohort and realised, joined the dots, that there was this widespread disaster going on.
And a lot of them paid their own money in to try and balance the books, which makes everything look really ghastly.
Pressure on them, their relationships, their families, their reputation in the community, their finances, their well-being, just devastating. We will be speaking to somebody who was personally affected in all this a little bit later on in the programme as well.
Here's another thing about this. I mean, we're talking about we can't get people to join the armed forces. We've got 3 boats in the Navy. We haven't got enough crew to staff them. Who would be... And we've got massive deficits within the police services around the country as well, even though the Home Office will say figures are at their highest ever. Panorama tonight on BBC One will show you that there's 18,000 of a deficit in the police force around the country. But who would become a postmaster or postmistress now? That's the whole thing. How are we going? I mean, I know they want rid of post offices and whatever.
Well, I think this whole scandal could actually be the end of the post office. Because the cost of the compensation alone will be devastating for whoever has to end up paying.
But then that plays into the privatisation hands, which a lot of people have wanted all along.
No, it's really sad on so many levels. Let us know your thoughts on this morning, especially if you were affected or you know somebody who was affected.
Would you be a postmaster or mistress?
It's not an easy job either to do. Apparently quite a lot of tests and interviews and so forth in order to be able to get the job in the first place. Oh, so much to say on this. Let us know your thoughts. gbviews@gbnews.com.
Well, as if that wasn't depressing enough, we've got lots more depression coming your way between now and 9:30.
The Golden Globes, that's a bit of a pick-me-up.
What crap films?
No, just celebrating showbiz. Bit of showbiz.
But they're not. The whole thing is they're not showbiz. They're depressing films, except for. Well, I never saw that, but that depresses me.
Going wrong.
The thought of that depresses me. So while the Prime Minister has promised more tax relief to help families, a council tax hike is unavoidable as an increasing number of local authorities face bankruptcy right across the country.
Well, a deadline expired last night for Birmingham City Council to set out a credible plan to address their £300 million budget gap over the next 2 years. Let's cross now to...
What were we showing pictures of Ed Davey for?
I'm not sure.
Anyway.
I wondered why you were pausing.
OK. He's out in his van.
I'll tell you what, we can speak now to our West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson. Jack, I've got an idea. First thing they could do is switch off their lights whilst they're on all night long. Why is that lit up like a Christmas tree at vast expense when they're bankrupt?
Good point.
It's annoying me.
Well, that is, of course, every bit of expenditure is under scrutiny, isn't it, here at Birmingham City Council? Of course, the commissioners have been in here since October, overviewing the council as it looks to make those savings and those cuts. Now, it's back in December, wasn't it, that the council said they'd found around £177 million worth of savings over the course of 2 years. But the commissioners, which were sent in by Michael Gove, have said back then that by yesterday, when that deadline expired, they needed to have found £300 million. And so today we wait very much with bated breath as to whether they have found that money. But the fact is, cuts are on the way, and the selling off of assets is also on the way. We already know from plans revealed in the documents last month that around £57 million is expected to be withdrawn from the Children and Families Department. The next biggest saving so far planned comes from the highways and bins area, around £29 million worth of cuts from there, and that's very much one of those more obvious signs of the bankruptcy of this council and the stacking up maybe of bin bags on high streets and in residential areas, as well as those, of course, the statutory services. They can't be taken away completely, but the frequency is one of the things this council can look at to try and save money. But it's not just Birmingham that are very much in this same position. Of course, we take a look at the bankrupt councils across the country. We've got the likes of Hackney, we've got Hillingdon, Northamptonshire, Slough, Thurrock, and moving further up north, Nottingham, one of the most recent ones as well, to of course declare their own bankruptcy. And where this council goes from here and what they decide to do might also include raising council tax. Of course, that is one of the main ways that other councils in the past have achieved some raising of funds to try and offset their deficits. And of course, we knew last month that the council were going to apply to the Department of Levelling Up to try and raise that above the legal limit of 5%, possibly to 10 or 15%. And I've been speaking to people on the streets of Birmingham to get their reaction to that.
It's disgraceful, really, isn't it, if you listen to it? And all the work they've done on Birmingham, and instead of having finished off half the projects, which they should have finished off a long time ago.
If they can't make it run as a business, then they need to be looking to the government for assistance in running themselves as a business.
I mean, I'd certainly be worried about raising council tax. I'd be less worried if I could see a proper plan of how it's going to be spent and what we're going to get as a benefit from that, rather than it just bailing out the council.
Just do not see why the existing council taxpayers should be asked to pay to pick up the tab for something that is not their fault.
Well, I agree with the 5%. I think it's any higher, people are going to struggle. They've got to be a bit fair to those who can't afford it, really.
The first signs of the bins not to be emptied, then the rodents around, It's a shame to see it, it really is.
Yeah, so around a 10% increase would mean around £195 extra a year on a Band D property in the city. And at a time when many people are already struggling with their own bills, any extra cost, of course, is going to be bad news for them. And we'll bring you the latest here from Birmingham throughout the day.
Just get them to switch their lights out, Jack.
Yeah,
that's what
you have to turn them all off. You could leave the porch on, at least so it looks like somebody's home. But why every single window? I'd love to know what their electricity bill is. cost of
it's anything
energy
like their
these
other
days.
bills. It's
Well,
pretty
they just don't
drastic,
care,
isn't
clearly.
it?
I think that's really outrageous, actually.
But look, we're just talking about all this doom and gloom. How bad is, and it is bad. It is bad. I mean, all this flooding that's going on as well. A lot of that is lack of investment. You know, people not being working for the medical profession, people not being teachers, people not working for the Navy, whatever it happens to be. It's all due to a lack of investment. Just how bad are things in this country? What do you think? Are we being too gloomy about all of this? What's there good to celebrate? That's the question.
Right, with the time at 18 minutes past 6. If you have just joined us, welcome. Here's a reminder of our top stories this morning.
A petition calling for former post office boss Paula Venables to be stripped of her CBE has surpassed 1 million signatures following the Horizon scandal revelations at the post office.
The Childline founder and broadcaster Dame Esther Rantzen has urged for MPs to urgently hold a debate on legalising assisted dying. The 83-year-old has stage 4 lung cancer and has since joined the Swiss organisation Dignitas for help to die.
The Conservatives have chosen Peter Bone's girlfriend as their candidate. You couldn't make it up, could you? To replace him as the MP for Wellingborough after he was found to have bullied and harassed a member of his staff. She's Helen Harrison, and she will stand in the by-election, which will likely to be held in February. He has denied the bullying allegations.
More than 160 flood warnings remain in place this morning across England. Over 1,800 properties have been damaged. After being criticised for not meeting with flood victims, the Prime Minister spoke with some of the residents affected in Oxford yesterday.
There have been many people affected by what's happened over the past week, but also 49,000 homes have been protected from flooding as a result of that investment, and also things like the pumps that I've been seeing here today and the flood barriers. Just in the community I've been walking around, hundreds of homes have been protected because of those investments. But of course this is going to be devastating for those who are impacted, which is why there's financial support in place. But overall, the investment that's going into flood defences is at a very, very high level.
Which stage I would say to Rishi, close but no cigar. The thing about him is, as soon as you tell him there's something wrong, he tells you what he's done right. Instead of just sitting saying, this is awful, this is terrible, this is heartbreaking for people, and we're going to do more. We think we're doing a lot, but we're going to do more.
It's not just him that does that. I would say politicians are so afraid to accept anything, apologise for anything, to own a problem, because they just get absolutely lambasted for it in the press.
By people like us.
People like us, but also on an election year, they're just terrified of putting a foot wrong. So we've all play a part in that, I suppose, and then we end up with politicians who don't speak the truth, which is just, as you say, infuriating.
But the thing is, it's just that if you're being treated like a fool, that he goes out to allegedly, supposedly give sympathy to people who are suffering from flooding by just telling us how brilliant he is, doesn't work. Like marriages, more of them are breaking down, and they break down today, this first working day of January, than other times of the year.
Yes, so much so that the first working Monday of January is often dubbed Divorce Day. I would say, though, I suspect that the marriages have broken down before today. Today is just the day they decide to, get started with the process. Marriages don't end overnight, do they, usually? I'm no expert, but I would assume. Anyway.
Well, you'll find out. Throughout January, over 40,500 people in the country are expected to search online for divorce, as the song said. That's 25% higher than you would normally get for people searching for divorce.
Gosh, so we're asking this morning why so many of us are getting divorced, and we can discuss this a little bit further with divorce coach Sarah Davison. Good morning to you. Look, the figures go up 25% today, but is that borne out in the figures generally? Are there more divorces than ever? My impression is that the 80s and 90s was a period of really horrendous, acrimonious divorces, and now things are a little bit more... Well, the quickie divorces, I'm hoping, have made it a little bit easier. I don't know. Take it away. You know what I'm trying to say.
Well, yes. I mean, recently, actually, 2021, after COVID, we saw a 10% rise in divorce rates. Then in 2022, there was another increase as well by 20%. So we were at an all-time high then. This year, well, 2023 just gone, the stats are showing that we actually dropped 30%. So the actual divorce rate has come down back to where we were before. But does that represent more people being happy in marriage? I'm not quite sure. I think that a lot of the people that I see in my clinic are struggling with the cost of living crisis, and finances can be a real reason to stay together if you can't afford to separate two lifestyles. So even though it has come down, there are many other reasons why it might be that people aren't getting divorced right now.
So quite simply, people can't afford to go through with it.
Yes, I think obviously at the moment with the cost of living crisis, household bills are very expensive. Mortgages are incredibly expensive. So if you are trying to separate two lifestyles right now, that can be a real challenge, because that means two households, which also means if you have children, it might mean several bedrooms. So again, there is a huge cost implication for getting separated. Plus also a recent survey by Stowe Family Law showed that 50% of families right now are struggling and experiencing friction within their marriage because of the hike in mortgage rates and the pressure it's put on them. But 32% of them said they would never leave their partner just because they don't want to live alone. So actually a fear of being on your own and loneliness, again, is another factor right now too.
Sarah, factors, you're talking about factors. I'm going to guess sex is the biggest factor, or lack of it, lack of intimacy. I know it's not as simple as that, but when you boil things down, if people are being, frisky with each other or whatever, usually that can smooth over a lot of problems.
Yes, and you do find that a lot of people that do break up is because a lot of that intimacy has disappeared. I'm seeing so many people right now who are finding that the children have left home and they're now without those distractions of the kids, the school runs, what they're used to having other people in the house. They're looking across the breakfast table at their partner thinking, gosh, I really don't have that much in common with you anymore. And that intimacy, that sort of sexy times you talk about there, that has gone. And obviously that does lead to frictions and people looking elsewhere. Usually though, that comes down to communication. That comes down to lack of communication over a period of time. It can also be a build-up of resentment within a relationship. And that comes from what I call stacking, which is when you have problems in a relationship and maybe you don't want to face them. Maybe you just want to sweep them under the carpet and not really deal with them because maybe not for any malicious reason, but you just want to avoid any kind of confrontation. And if you do want to avoid confrontation, quite often just avoiding the argument to carry on seems like a good idea at the time. However, what that does is it enables those frustrations to build, and those expectations that are unvoiced, those problems that you're not facing, can become the straw that breaks the camel's back over a period of time. So I would always say that if there are problems like a lack of intimacy, or there are issues where you're not communicating, do try and face them head on. A lot of us will want to avoid the things that we feel uncomfortable talking about, whether that is intimacy or financial problems. We'll tend to avoid chatting about them with our partner just because we don't want those arguments or to face some of those really tough decisions. So again, talking to your partner, communication will really help.
And also, prioritizing your marriage. If you think it's probably the biggest decision you'll ever make, who you decide to marry, and then because of the things like mortgages or children or your job, whatever it is, you don't prioritise that relationship, and suddenly you find yourself, as you described, sort of fallen out of love. So I think on divorce day, I follow something called Stronger Marriages on Instagram. They're always putting out top tips, and they're saying you wouldn't leave anything else in your life unattended in the way that people neglect their marriages. And their top 10, and I thought today's a good day to list them. Top 10 tips: spend time together often. Sounds simple, but people forget. Communicate obsessively. Be intimate often. Be honest always. Forgive mistakes fast. Root for your spouse to win. Lift each other up. Hold hands. Continue to date. Make your marriage a priority. I always thought that was some nice advice.
Sarah, thank you very much indeed. Very, very good talking to you. You've raised a lot of things to a lot of people there, and they'll get in touch and let us know how they feel today. Sarah Davidson there, who is a divorce Coach, thank you very much indeed. Romance is hard to beat. When romance goes, you're in trouble. Keep the romance going.
Absolutely.
Are you in love with the weather? Let's find out.
Or is it a bit frosty?
Hello, morning. I'm Marco Patagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see plenty of fine weather across the UK during the week ahead, although cloud will start to increase from the north later, and temperatures will also start to recover after a chilly start. Back to the detail for this morning, though, and we've got quite icy conditions down towards the southeast. A warning in force across parts of southeast England until 10 o'clock this morning. Do take care out and about on the roads, with wintry showers moving in from the east. One or two showers up across parts of eastern Northern Ireland there as well, but elsewhere across the UK it's set fair, fog and frost soon lifting to give plenty of sunshine, and those showers across the southeast migrate their way westwards as we go through the day across other southern counties of England, turning increasingly to rain as temperatures start to pick up, although it will be a chilly day, and that takes us into quite a chilly evening too. Those showers continue their way westwards into southwest England as we go through into the evening, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather around and turning frosty as we go through the evening under clear skies. So a pretty chilly start as we get into the early hours of Tuesday. Temperatures widely dipping down to, if not just below, freezing. And again, a few fog patches in place as we go into the Tuesday morning itself. Through the day on Tuesday, the fog and frost will generally lift fairly readily. Plenty of sunshine around, but again, it will be staying quite cold. Even though it's early January, temperatures no better than 4 or 5 degrees during the afternoon. 5 Celsius is 41 in Fahrenheit, and that's several degrees below where they should be for the time of year. So certainly wrap up warm over the next few days. The cold weather is here, set to stay for a few days at least.
We're crossing to Los Angeles very, very shortly. The latest on the Golden Globes. Getting your hands on those after this.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affects us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oh, the time is 6:31. You're tuned into Breakfast on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel. Here is a reminder of our top stories this morning.
A petition calling for the former Post Office boss Paula Venables to be stripped of her CBE has surpassed 1 million following the Horizon scandal revelations at the Post Office.
Broken Britain, strike action, rising fuel costs and migration numbers take their toll on British life as the Labour Party say the Prime Minister's putting vanity before the country by delaying an election.
The first Monday of January is traditionally seeing a spike in the number of people petitioning for divorce. Our relationship expert will give us her take later in the programme.
What's going to happen is that actually there will still be a large number of people, irrespective of the cost of living crisis, which is hugely florid at the moment, who will just simply say emotionally This is too much of a toll for me to take.
Oppenheimer, the big winner at the Golden Globe Awards, which took place last night. 5 awards going to it, including the top prize.
Yes, Cillian Murphy won Best Male Actor, Robert Downey Jr. won Best Male Supporting Actor, and Christopher Nolan won Best Director. They can't be disappointed with that.
Succession on TV scored the most wins in the TV category, following its well-received final season.
Well, let's talk through some of the highlights.
I got bored with Succession.
Same.
Yeah, I'm not with it at the last season.
I totally agree. It was,
we agree on something. Amazing.
Actually, well, we'll talk about my new favourite show at the end of this, maybe. But anyway, Judita De Silva joins us from LA. Good morning to you. I dread to think what the time is where you are. Busy evening for you. I can see you still in all of your glam in your beautiful outfit there. Aside from the stunning red carpet outfit from Barbie, it hasn't been a great night for Margot Robbie and the team behind Barbie, has it? It's been an Oppenheimer absolute home run.
Yeah, I think the film Barbie had the goodwill, but when you talk about the actual filmmaking, technical prowess, and the traditional elements of film that the voters would actually really, really rate, Christopher Nolan has always been a darling of the lovers of film. Filmmakers who love filmmakers, they really cherish Christopher Nolan because he's a throwback to old filmmakers that really cared about the artistry of motion picture. So when he set about making Oppenheimer, everyone knew that he left Warner Brothers Studios, he'd moved over to Universal. He's somebody that's always saying, save cinemas, watch movies in cinemas. And he assembled this all-star cast. But when you watch the film, they all sparkled. Hence the wins for Cillian Murphy and Robert Downey Jr. So for Barbie, they should be happy that they managed to come away with the win for the inaugural award for box office achievement, because it was the film about a doll that made over $1 billion at the cinema, and that wasn't something to be sneered at.
Serious point about Nolan, Judita. A lot of people, a lot of critics, a lot of technical people say you just can't hear the dialogue in his films. I don't know if you've heard that argument before about the way he shoots things and records things as well. And believe me, as you get older, you'll be using those subtitles.
Yes, that has happened before, because even when he did the Batman trilogy, by the time he did The Dark Knight Rises, you'll remember that Tom Hardy played the character of Bane. And the work they did with his face mask, most people couldn't hear what he was saying. And Tom Hardy fans were really looking forward to that. But what Christopher Nolan says is he likes to keep things very organic and real and in the moment, which is what the actors love. So he picks up the audio from within the takes he has done, as opposed to doing so much overdubbing afterwards, which is a normal tradition that has been used in film since time. So it's all, these are the idiosyncrasies about Christopher Nolan that either frustrate you or make you adore him because he's such a purist.
Now, Judita, a really strange film. I haven't seen it yet, but I've seen the trailers for it. Emma Stone in Poor Things. Tell us about the character that she plays, or what you made of this whole thing. It is quite surreal, isn't it?
Yes, it's directed by Yorgos Lanthimos, and you remember he directed The Favourite that turned Olivia Colman into a global superstar. He's quirky, he's a bit off left field, so if you're not into those films, you struggle understanding him, but he is one of those auteur filmmakers. Emma Stone plays almost the female version of a Frankenstein. A lady commits, spoiler alert. A lady commits suicide, and the scientist reanimates her, and you see her in full adult form go through the psychological and emotional process of a baby from childhood to adulthood. And she does so almost in super motion to really comedic effect. And that's why so many people love this film. Emma Stone is on supreme form because you see her evolve and develop and show the spectrum of evolution of a human being who already physically is an adult, but has the mentality of all the steps of what it is to grow up in life. And that's something that's such a nuanced play on what it is to grow up. But because Emma Stone is such a solid actress, she really takes you on a journey and you believe in her character of Bella Baxter.
Well, Judita, thank you very much indeed for your insight on things. We appreciate appreciate you staying up and talking to us. Judita there da Silva, who's a reporter live there from LA. Thank you so much.
And do you know how nice it is to be talking about the Golden Globes and actually it being a success? Because do you remember all the scandal just a couple of years ago? And actually there was a boycott, nobody wanted to appear, no one was able to... They didn't like the way the process was voted for. They've had a big PR makeover. No one's talking about that now. They're actually talking about the stuff that we're supposed to talk about, which is the films. So
no, it's because the whole woke brigade have infiltrated the film industry, and it is now all woke and mad, and there's nothing to watch. But Paul Coyte and I, we believe The Bear should have had a, not The Whale, which you watched, The Bear.
That was rubbish, but...
Did very well. Which is about a bear in the woods that finds a suitcase full of what?
You know what? We're actually talking about two different shows.
Oh, no.
What, the cocaine?
You're talking about the cocaine bear.
Yeah.
And I'm talking about the TV series The Bear, which is the one about the American kitchen, which is like a sandwich place, which won loads of Golden Globes for the TV show.
Bear, I know.
It's nothing to do...
TV, Yogi Bear. You haven't seen the bear that gets high on cocaine?
No. Is he the bear that does it in the woods? Is that...
That's hilarious. I didn't even know about the other series.
The other bear, but yeah, yours is about a bear, but mine's not about a bear, although it's called The Bear.
And then, you know, you want a good movie, you just see Gerard Butler. Whether it's The Plane, not nominated, not there at all, or his latest one, Kandahar.
Oh.
Very good.
Very good.
Very good
We're not
as
familiar
well.
with the Kandahar yet.
And Das Boot, the series. You watched Das Boot?
The original Das Boot.
No.
Because they remade Das Boot. Why would they remake that? I never understood why they made that.
Because they've now run it into about 10 different series.
Right.
And there's millions of episodes available on Sky.
This is the trouble. There's so much to watch, and we all watch different things. I'm so behind the curve. I've just discovered, and I'm now obsessed with, don't judge me, but it's my new favourite watching, and I've watched it every night for the last few nights, Yellowstone. With Kevin Costner. I love it.
Oh,
Set
right.
on a ranch.
I tell you the interesting thing about that is I started watching it and I think Kevin Costner's a brilliant... No, and I'll tell you why.
Don't ruin it.
I've seen it all before. I've seen it in...
the John Wayne?
No, nothing to do with John Wayne.
Just thinking of the big old...
No, would you just let me finish?
Right, just come on then.
Dallas.
Oh.
It's just Dallas remade. That's all it is.
I just love it. I cannot get enough of it.
So instead of oil, they deal in trees, they deal in forests, and they deal in cattle.
But yeah, it came out in 2018, so that's how behind the curve I am. But there's about 6 series of that for me to
But I'll tell you what, mate,
anyway.
if I was to make a film, you couldn't have made a film out of that Arsenal-Liverpool FA Cup tie yesterday.
Well, I tell you what, I mean, Arsenal just cannot score for the life of them. Third loss on the bounce. You know what's interesting? You know when people throw facts around, they go, oh, you know, it's just terrible. This is the first time they've lost 3 on the bounce in 2 years. And I'm like, well, that's nothing. But they're not really good at the moment. 61 shots they've had in 3 games, and they just cannot score. And it points to Ivan Toney. You see, Ivan Toney at Brentford, who they would love to go over and play there. But the thing is, he's going to be 80 million, and it's the FFP situation. So they're going to have to sell before they manage to buy to bring Ivan Toney in. And it's a striker that Arsenal desperately...
they so need. So they've got to get rid of somebody. They've got to get rid of somebody before that.
Got to get something in. Man City got 5 past Huddersfield. Kevin De Bruyne back. Luton drew with Bolton. Forest drew with Blackpool, so there's going to be replays there. And Bristol City got a draw at West Ham, so there's another replay. Patrick Bamford's goal at Peterborough, did you see that? No. Playing for Leeds. Goal of the season, ball comes over, traps it on his chest, turns round, volleys the ball in, so they won at Peterborough United.
They went through. Yeah. And whoever your producer is today, he's history.
What's he said?
He said, Minnows, Manchester United play the mighty Wigan Athletic tonight.
You know what, talking about the bear, he's poking the bear, is he? This is the new film, Poking the Bear, with Eamonn Holmes, what he's doing to you. Minnows, I mean, it's outrageous, but...
you wouldn't want to poke my bear,
I know, I certainly wouldn't even...
Honest to goodness.
I wouldn't even dream of it.
So the bear eats a suitcase full of cocaine.
This is Cocaine
everybody.
Angry bear.
See, when I'm talking about the TV show, The Bear, with the kitchen, and you're saying about, and I'm thinking, the cocaine and the bear, and then it threw me.
Oh,
I'll watch your film if you watch my TV show.
Eating things. Whilst we've got you, Paul, the emails have gone absolutely crazy on cinnamon. Mr. Holmes, there's nothing middle class about putting cinnamon on your banana on toast. It's a very useful spice for controlling your blood sugar levels, says Sasha, but I'm not alone. Good morning, Isabel and Eamonn. I agree with Isabel. Can't have enough cinnamon. Add even more to apple pie. Put cinnamon on my yoghurt for breakfast. That's Linda in Stourbridge. Good morning to you, Linda. And this one from A. Miller. Cinnamon is delicious. My late mum would make cinnamon cakes and pastries for us. Loved coming home from school to the smell of home baking, and not only cinnamon cakes. I'm with Isabel on this one.
Yeah, that's all your middle-class viewers. They're middle-class viewers.
Mashed banana with sterilised cream. That's my favourite.
Yes.
Mash it all up.
I pretend to be the working class man.
So, were you brought up, were you weaned on cinnamon? I doubt it.
No, it was mashed banana, get banana, mash it all up, bit of sugar, that was the little sprinkle, and then sterilised cream, mix it, oh my goodness, what a treat that was.
Very
unbelievable.
Good. Very good, very good.
I didn't know what cinnamon was.
We're back with the papers. What's in the papers right after this? Took away.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So, send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
It's good to see some of the people that we have in here. Who have we got in here this morning?
We have Alex Armstrong and Nicola McLean, who we've just been chatting to. We're very
We're catching up about Christmas, and also, well, look, let's get into this straight away. We've got, what have we got? I need my glasses on. 2 million more will be claiming disability benefits by the end of the decade, Alex.
Yeah.
As mental health problems help push the cost by over 50%.
Yeah, quite shocking numbers, but I don't know if anyone is surprised to hear this, frankly. We've been talking about mental health quite a lot, and there's a lot more people getting diagnosed now.
Absolutely, but you know what? There isn't any, Alex. There's not provision for care. There's no care there for them at all.
Absolutely.
And I speak from people who I know in my life, and the care is not there for them.
You're right. I had a very close member of my family suffers quite terribly from mental health, and there's so little not only they can do, but parents as well that need support for young people who really, really struggle have got nothing.
Yeah. You see, I don't know. I mean, you asked me about this 2 years ago when I would have thought, oh, pull yourself together and do this and do that. And then, Nicola, I just talked to more and more people, and more people who particularly as 8-year-old children or 9-year-old or 10-year-olds, and they've had things said to them when they're young that stick with them in their adult life.
Yeah, I mean, mental health is real. I've been so honest about it. I've suffered myself. I've never had depression, which I'm really, really lucky about, but anxiety, horrifically, eating disorders, and there isn't the help that you need. And all the doctors want to do is give you antidepressants. It's like, I'm not depressed. Like, I need other things. I need the care, and, you know, so it is really sad, and it does start from kids.
Sometimes is it just about talking? Is it?
I think that, you know, for me personally, my sister's a psychodynamic therapist, so I should really want to go to therapy, but I actually don't like therapy. I think I'm really open and honest about it, and I think I know my triggers with anxiety, and I've spoke to my husband about it, so he can help. He can see if I'm like stressing, and he can help me. And the kids are my children are really good. I'm really bad with like noise anxiety, so tapping.
Yes.
My kids.
Oh gosh, don't sit next to Eamonn.
Does he tap?
He's not holding his pen, but I have to whack him on the wrist about 4 times a show with that pen tapping.
The pen tapping. Yeah, so I think that we do really need to give support and help where needed, and not just give antidepressants.
You're a different person than when you're anxious, right? And and a lot of people, something we're going to talk about today is a lot of people do not send their children to school when they show a bit of anxiety. Now, where do you stand on the pull yourself together theory?
It's really tricky, that, because my eldest really struggled with school. He's at college now, and football, so it's perfect for him. But he struggled with school. My instant thing would be, no, you're fine, come on. But when you've got a 13-year-old crying that they don't want to go to school, I'm not sending my 13-year-old into school crying. But I made other provisions for him, so we made it easy for him to get there in other ways. The head teacher was brilliant. Yeah, I'm not great with tough parenting. I'm like, oh, my baby.
I will also add to this story as well, because, you know, I've spent a bit of time on social media, as a lot of people do, and you see, particularly on TikTok, which is where a lot of kids are, there's a lot of people saying, you probably have ADHD if you've got this thing. And it's like, well, that could just be a bit of being active, having a lot of energy at that age as you do. So I do think there'll be a lot of misdiagnosing and a lot of people saying they have social anxiety and things like that, when actually maybe they don't.
And, you know, we should always qualify that none of us are professional in this department, but I would, and I'm amongst those people, but I would also say, if my kids did have a problem, if I did have a problem, probably the worst thing I could do is batten down the hatches and stay at home and fester and think about it some more. I would think, if I was feeling low, the best thing to do is go to work, keep busy. And work is the best antidote often.
Absolutely.
It all depends.
Well, there's now a thing where schools are going to send out counsellors or whatever to bring the child to school, to walk the child to school and to talk and to say, hey, look, it ain't that bad and whatever. So it's complicated, but people are paying attention now more and more about it. Alex, let's talk about the upcoming election, whenever it may well be. The Conservatives facing obliteration.
Yes, yeah, this is a...
front page of The Guardian.
Front page of The Guardian today. The Tory party, I mean, look, I don't know if anyone hasn't heard this, that they're going to be obliterated in the next election. And obviously, this is done by Danny Kruger, who is a leading backbencher, supposedly, of a influential group. He's done some research and saying people are finding the Tory party to be unelectable, re-electable at least. And his big part of this piece he's done, it says that they're not conservative enough. He said that they've been too liberal, despite having, you know, decades worth of time to be more conservative. They're saying they haven't been conservative enough, and that's the problem here. Now, they're also talking about the rise of far-right parties here in the Guardian, saying that there's a big sweeping of far-right parties across the field in Europe, and that's going to really hamper any centre-right party that's trying to get into government. Look, I don't think anyone is surprised. You look at the polls, we look at the front page of most headlines, and it's scandal after scandal, MP after MP resigning. Maybe they do deserve to be obliterated, frankly.
But Alex, what's surprising about this story is to hear a Conservative Party member saying that. And surely Rishi Sunak will be furious with his backbencher for this.
Yeah, I don't think Rishi Sunak's got much control over his own party. And I think it's just, I mean, you're seeing it, constant resignations. We had Robert Jenrick not that long ago resigning over just some disagreements on policy. So, yeah, maybe...
But let me ask you, I don't want just to reveal who you're voting for, but do you know, Alex and Nicola, who you're voting for?
I'm not sure yet, if I'm being honest, but probably not Conservatives at the moment.
Nicola?
Same, but I do worry, will it make a difference regardless?
We see, that's the thing. There is no difference, but they're all the same. All of these parties, it all boils down that the real winner in all of this is Tony Blair, because everybody wants to be what Tony Blair was and to affect people the way he did across the board like that. So it's interesting. It's interesting. Arctic Monday, a 12-day chill and whiteouts are on the way from Scandinavia, Nicola.
Yeah, they say it's going to go down to -12. So maybe the schools will be closed and loads of children will be happy because we're going to get snowed in.
-12? Goodness me, or is it a 12-day chill?
Oh, is it? Have I read that wrong?
12-day chill and whiteouts are on the way from Scandinavia.
No, it says...
Does it say
yeah, it's going to dip to as low as 12 at night.
Oh, my God.
Yeah. So
that's not very good for those places that have had all those floods. You know, you can imagine what that's going to make places into an ice rink, isn't it? I mean...
but you see, Alex, now, if you were to buy a house now anywhere, that's got to be the first question, hasn't it?
Well, it's not even places that used to flood, is it? It's new. People who've never been flooded before are now being faced with this.
Yeah, there's got to be a huge investment by the government to really do something about this because it is getting worse and worse. I mean, how many towns and homes are going to be devastated? And there's, I mean, you can just see the pictures on the front page of The Guardian there, actually. That is incredible. The whole town turned into a pond.
Front of the Financial Times as well.
Incredible.
Yeah. Shocking.
The whole situation about the weather, Nicola, let me put this to you. There's no such thing as bad weather. There's only bad clothing, the only wrong type of clothing. I think people complain about the weather if they're caught without having the right summer clothes or the right winter clothes.
True. Yeah, but I mean, -12. Have any of us got the clothing for that?
No.
-12, or maybe I haven't.
Well, you would have the clothes. You could have those, what are they called, Canada Goose type clothes, and then they can be stolen, ripped off your back.
Yeah, I was just about to say, I can't afford one of them. They're so expensive, aren't they?
You've got a target on the streets.
Absolutely. For a kind of, and real fur. We don't like real fur.
No. Definitely don't like real fur. But I'll tell you, I love any coat that's got a sort of silver bacon foil lining to it, which is very comfy.
Yeah, you just have to run a marathon, you get given those for free. The missing part of this Alaska Airlines plane, Alex.
You've no time to talk about that.
We've got 2 minutes, so we can talk
You
about
haven't,
that.
you've got 1 minute. You've got 50 seconds.
1:45. Just eating up 50
I was told
look.
6:50.
They said 2 minutes, so shush.
Yes, so I don't know if you must have seen this. I'm sure people have seen this in social media at least. A massive chunk of an aircraft, I hope we can get some pictures up, has just completely flown off of a plane mid-air. I mean, it must have been absolutely terrifying. It's a door, basically. It's a whole door gone.
Yeah.
And now they've found that piece of wreckage in someone's back garden. Thankfully, it's...
Well, you'll find this is human error. That's what you'll find. It hasn't been closed right. They talked about a window. It wasn't a window at all. It's a door, as you said, and it was an overwing door. But you find as an avid watcher of air crash investigation, you will find that 95% of all problems with aircraft are human.
Well, I mean, there'll be a lot of questions to ask because they've grounded a whole fleet, haven't they? I mean, that's a lot of money lost.
But there's a lot of problems with this plane.
Yeah, clearly.
This particular plane.
I mean, you wonder how they get to fly at this point.
Well, I'll tell you what, it's greed. They need to make planes bigger. They need to pack more of us in there, make us more uncomfortable, and safety can be compromised as a result. People have died.
Yeah, and the Ryanair boss wants us all stacked up and standing on flights. That was one of the plans he unveiled last year for planes.
That's right. That's absolutely right. Yeah, and talk about charging you for going to the loo and all sorts of things like that. Guys, great talking to you. And the guys are going to be back. Nicola and Alice are going to be back in about 40 minutes' time.
So there's lots of weather to contend with. We've been talking about the flooding, we're talking about the big freeze. Here's all the details with Marco Britannia.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, morning. I'm Marco Britannia. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see plenty of fine weather across the UK during the week ahead, although cloud will start to increase from the north later, and temperatures will also start to recover after a chilly start. Back to the detail for this morning, though, and we've got quite icy conditions down towards the southeast. A warning in force across parts of southeast England until 10 o'clock this morning. Do take care out and about on the roads, with wintry showers moving in from the east. 1 or 2 showers up across parts of eastern and Northern Ireland there as well, But elsewhere across the UK, it's set fair, fog and frost soon lifting to give plenty of sunshine, and those showers across the southeast migrate their way westwards as we go through the day across other southern counties of England, turning increasingly to rain as temperatures start to pick up, although it will be a chilly day, and that takes us into quite a chilly evening too. Those showers continue their way westwards into southwest England as we go through into the evening, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather around and turning frosty as we go through the evening under clear skies. So a pretty chilly start as we get into the early hours of Tuesday. Temperatures widely dipping down to, if not just below, freezing. And again, a few fog patches in place as we go into the Tuesday morning itself. Through the day on Tuesday, the fog and frost will generally lift fairly readily. Plenty of sunshine around, but again, it will be staying quite cold, even though it's early January. Temperatures no better than 4 or 5 degrees during the afternoon. 5 Celsius is 41 in Fahrenheit, and that's several degrees below where they should be for the time of year. So certainly wrap up warm over the next few days. The cold weather is here, set to stay for a few days at least.
A brighter outlook with Box Solar, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you,
GB News.
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on this Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests, and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good morning. It's coming up to 7 o'clock. It's Monday, the 8th of January. You are very welcome to Breakfast with Eamonn Holmes and Isabel Webster.
Nice to have you on board, however you're watching, however you're listening. You can say, Alexa, play GB News. What else do you have besides Alexa?
Siri.
Hey, Siri, play GB News. And it'll go on everywhere, all over the country. And leading that news this morning, this is what we've got.
A petition calling for the former Post Office boss Paula Venables to be stripped of her CBE has surpassed 1 million signatures following the Horizon scandal revelations.
Strike action, rising fuel costs and migration numbers. Does that make it a broken, brittle? Labour says the Prime Minister's putting vanity before the country by delaying an election.
The deadline has expired for Birmingham City Council to outline a credible plan to address a budget gap totalling £300 million. That's as other bankrupt local councils across the country are pleading for more cash.
Yes, cuts and a council tax rise are on the way for the residents here in Birmingham. I'll have all the details for you.
Thank you, Jack. A rise in children taking time off school for their mental well-being. What do you think about that? We're going to be debating it. Are we raising a generation of snowflakes?
And we'll be crossing live to LA for all the latest on the Golden Globes, with Oppenheimer winning big. But what sort of night was it for Barbie?
And Paul is here with your sport and what sort of... It's not over yet in the FA Cup.
Oh, it certainly is not,
no.
But Manchester United, Wigan play Manchester United tonight. Final game in the third round of the FA Cup, and then the draw is also made. You know, have you ever wondered how they get the numbers, how the numbers are actually assigned to each club?
Alphabetically?
No.
No.
I will explain it to you.
Will you?
I've spent a lot of time actually researching this.
So
I think it's something we should know.
I would have thought, is it league position?
No.
Not alphabetically, not league position.
All right, it starts off for the first round alphabetically, but then it changes. So there is a reason for each number. That's what I am.
You have to stay tuned for that.
Oh, absolutely.
We absolutely will.
You know what? This is a cliffhanger, isn't it?
It's a cliffhanger.
It really is.
Well done, well done.
Not such a cliffhanger with the weather. We know it's going to be cold. Marco Britannia has all the details.
Start to the day today with some wintry showers towards the southeast of England. There will be plenty of fine weather as we head into the afternoon. I'll have all the details later.
And thank you very much indeed for getting in touch with us today.
Yes,
those of you who say that cinnamon is a foul-tasting substance, but it is good for you medically.
Yeah, and apparently they give it to horses as well for medical purposes. Somebody's informed me this morning. You learn a lot from the GB News inbox. And I've also just in the last few minutes seen a long email saying you don't get more working class than me, and I love cinnamon. So don't you middle class me about this.
Well...
Just because you don't like it. Anyway, I'm Team Cinnamon.
I don't know anybody working class who has cinnamon in their cupboard or who had when I was growing up. We were so poor on the sting anyway. What a mess this post office business is, and the country in general is. Pressure now mounting on the Prime Minister to finally compensate all of those people wrongly accused. These are wrongly accused postmasters and mistresses, hundreds of them still awaiting a settlement. Lots of them haven't even applied for a settlement. And those are the smiling faces that have a lot of the responsibility to bear. Paula Venel's there and her CBE. It's just ridiculous that there is a petition about this. If she'd any honour at all, she would hand that back.
Yeah, well, there is a petition and it has overnight surpassed 1 million signatures, and it's calling for her CBE to be stripped. Of course, as Eamonn was saying, she led the post office during the sub-postmaster's prosecutions, and so has a lot of questions to answer.
So, in fairness to her, and think about this because this is something we're going to have to answer and address, this was artificial intelligence. So she's the boss of the post office. The artificial intelligence people are telling her, no, this is the system, this works, this is absolutely foolproof. Fujitsu, who developed the whole system, what role have they got to play in all of this? How much of the responsibility have they got to bear? And how trusting can we possibly be of artificial intelligence after this?
Well, look, the Prime Minister has promised to try and expedite the process of exonerating people who've been convicted, but so far, only a fraction of them have been cleared, and they are looking now at ways to resolve what's been described as the biggest miscarriage of justice in recent British history.
OK, let's get the views now of criminal defence lawyer Nick Freeman and all of this. Nick, this is a legal mess, a legal minefield. There's no problem, I would imagine, Nick, pointing the finger and blaming certain people. How do you see it?
Good morning. This needs to be resolved as quickly as possible from a legal perspective. The Court of Appeal needs to get these, all the people, there have been 900 prosecutions, something like 700 convictions, 2,800 people had to abandon their businesses, and thousands of lives have been ruined. So, first of all, in relation to the criminal convictions, they need to be overturned quickly, and they just, in my view, because this is such a horrendous and exceptional case, needs to be pulled together, irrespective of an application. All the names need to be pulled together. They need to go before the Court of Appeal, even if they don't want to, and have those convictions just overturned. It would need emergency legislation to deal with that, to get round the formalities that exist, because those formalities take time, and time really. This This has started in 1999. It went on until 2015, and people have been dragging their heels since. It is incredible. So that's the first thing. All the convictions set aside with emergency legislation, so straight before the Court of Appeal, and overturn them. The next thing that needs to happen is there needs to be a punitive figure of compensation so that everyone gets a cheque literally within a few days, whether that's £600,000 or whatever. That's what needs to happen. And then the individual aspects of compensation can be dealt with on a slightly slower basis. And it's important to bear in mind, many people have died without this matter being resolved. And it's not just the people who lost their jobs who have been affected, but you hear horrendous stories of the children who have been affected, who have been abused, who have had eating disorders, there have been forced suicides. So there are other people who are affected who would be entitled to compensation. There needs to be justice, and I think that's the thing. There needs to be the truth. We need to find the truth, and those people responsible, whether they are at Fujitsu or whether they are at the post office, there needs to be a thorough, robust criminal investigation, and those people need to be brought to account without fear or favour. And of course, the post office is owned by the government, and there are MPs who have done a sterling job in bringing this to the public and fighting for these sub-postmasters. But was there anyone in the government who actually tried not to assist, tried to get in the way? I don't believe there was, but of course the government is owned by the post office, and it's hard to understand how this hasn't been resolved sooner. Bearing in mind it finished in 2015, we're now almost 9 years later. So speed is the essence. To get true justice, we need compensation, and we also need criminal prosecutions, and those people need to be dealt with by due process of law. And of course, then there's the outstanding matter for Fujitsu, in terms of it has the contract for Horizon at the moment. I understand that they're the only people who can deal with it. But should they get any future government contracts? Absolutely not. They should be sued civilly, and they should be made to pay very, very dearly for the damage, the subterfuge that they caused, because, of course, they were aware of exactly what was going on. They were aware of the bugs, the defects within their system. They sought to suppress them. They obviously, you mentioned earlier that Venables, she didn't know. I don't know whether you've seen the programme Bates Against Post Office. I anticipate you have, Eamonn. But it's quite clear when she was being interviewed by the Select Committee, she was asking questions when she wanted specific answers of them so that she could tell the truth. So that isn't, in my view, dealing with the matter honestly. That's orchestrating it so that you can get round the truth because this is what I've been told. So while she didn't reign over this particular period when this was happening, she was there and didn't bring the matter to justice as she should have done. So she needs to be the subject of a criminal investigation as well. We are told that the two experts from the Japanese company Fujitsu are being investigated for perjury and perverting the course of justice, but it shouldn't stop. They should not be made the scapegoats, because this is a huge company and there were many people within that company who knew what was going on. So criminal and civil investigation, compensation and overturning convictions is how this matter needs to be dealt with, and it needs to happen quickly in relation to the overturning of convictions and the compensation.
Okay, Nick, well put, well said. Thank you very much indeed for what needed to be said there today. Nick Freeman is a criminal lawyer. What do you think of what he had to say?
Yeah, I think what's so interesting about this, and you made the point at the very beginning that, this was, as far as the judge was concerned and the lawyers in the case, there was evidence to show that there had been wrongdoing by these sub-postmasters, which was wrong. And how do we make sure that that can't happen again? And I don't feel at all certain that we are in any way protected against that. If anything, I think we're probably more likely to see these kinds of tragedies unfolding, and then you see the dominoes effect of what that does to people's lives and people going to the grave not having had these issues resolved.
Yeah.
It's a tragedy. Let us know your thoughts.
The whole system, the whole hierarchy will immediately defer to the process that was there, and they will believe that that was infallible and that was artificial intelligence, and it was wrong. Mm-hmm. Rishi Sunak's facing calls to hold an election sooner rather than later, with finances tighter than ever and the NHS facing its longest strike in history. Labour says Britain is broken and only an election can fix it.
Sir Keir Starmer has accused Sunak of putting vanity before country by trying to serve 2 full years in office before announcing a vote. Well, let's bring in our digital political editor, Millie Cook, for more this morning. Good morning to you, Millie. Whichever way you cut it, the state of Britain this January 2024 is pretty gloomy, and it is going to be difficult for Rishi Sunak to turn around his position in the polls. Is it fair of Sir Keir Starmer to call it vanity, or is he just trying to get as much done before he loses in the next election?
I mean, Rishi Sunak has certainly argued that he's got a lot to do, he's sticking around so he can get it all done. But obviously the Labour Party is arguing that the country's in a dire state. There are strikes crippling huge amounts of the public sector and different public services. Taxes are at their highest level since post-World War II. And obviously people's finances, they're extremely tight. So Starmer is arguing that he's just kind of... It's a zombie government. He's even called him a squatter in number 10 Downing Street. So he's really pushing for a general election now. Obviously, Labour is 20 points ahead in the polls. So it makes total sense for the Labour Party to be pushing for an election. But with those poll ratings, it really begs the question, does Sunak have a mandate to remain in power? However, over the weekend, Sunak was out on the airwaves. His whole rhetoric was around sticking with the plan, staying the course. He was arguing the changes they've put in place are working and that Britain might not feel it yet, but they're getting there. And even Jeremy Hunt was saying things like Britain's dark days are behind us. So Sunak is very much arguing that Britain is getting there. However, having voters going into an election year asking questions like, is Britain in 2024 broken? That's extremely worrying for the Prime Minister.
And meanwhile, the Labour Party also trying to distinguish themselves from the Conservative Party. If you think of what the Prime Minister was talking about over the weekend, he's trying to make cuts in welfare. The Labour Party saying that they're up for a fight when it comes to green issues.
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, in recent months, we've seen a lot of commentary around Labour and the Conservatives sort of being two sides of the same coin when it comes to policy. So whether it's cutting migration, cutting taxes, or even foreign policy, the two parties at the moment are looking remarkably similar. They've kind of converged in recent months. So there is an effort as we lead up to an election of the two sides trying to differentiate themselves from one another. So Sunak's recent policy announcement, he's been looking at the idea of cutting welfare in order to make further tax cuts at the spring budget. This puts Labour in a slightly tricky position because obviously Starmer would love to cut taxes and Labour is all about putting money into public services. But there's a lot of questions over how he's going to afford that. And this kind of policy announcement from Sunak, he's really playing into the idea of the Conservatives being the party of sound money. So it's sort of a question for Starmer as to how he's going to pay for tax cuts. And he's really trying to avoid being perceived as the kind of leader that cannot be trusted with the economy. But obviously, things like welfare cuts, it's something that Starmer really doesn't want to go near. So it puts him in a tricky position.
Millie, thank you very much indeed. Thank you. Just saying, I'm just keeping my eye across a rocket launch, Cape Canaveral. It's going to happen in 4 minutes' time. We'll have a window on that. This is the Peregrine lander, and the idea about the mission is to find out if there really is water on the moon.
Yes, the first US lander on the moon since the Apollo mission of the 1970s. So it will be very exciting, and we'll have the countdown in, as Eamonn says, just a few minutes' time.
Well, while the Prime Minister's promised more tax relief to help you as a struggling family, a council tax hike seems unavoidable. An increasing number of local authorities face bankruptcy right across the country. A deadline expired last night for Birmingham to set out a credible plan to address their £300 million deficit over the next 2 years.
Well, let's cross to Birmingham. We can speak to our GB News West Midlands reporter, Jack Carson, who's live for us from there this morning. They failed to reach that deadline. I put it to you, it might have something to do with all the lights they've got switched on through the night there. Not exactly efficient, is it, Jack?
Well, no, maybe not. And of course, that £300 million of savings over the next couple of years was determined by the independent commissioners that have been sent in, the government commissioners that have been sent in, of course, back in October. They've been setting these deadlines every month to try and get the council to look at every single penny that they can save to balance their budget. Of course, legally, when we get that budget from the council in a few weeks' time, legally it has to be a balanced budget. So that's why there's been this urgency around finding those £300 million worth of savings for over the next year or two. Of course, back in December, they'd found around £177 million worth, and we have got some now more of the detail of where those drafted cuts come from. Particularly, £57 million is set to be cut at the moment from the Children and Families Department, and £29 million from the highways and bins areas. Of course, that's one of the more things you can see on the street that with the, of course, the street cleaners. But council tax rise is also one of the other things that are planned as well to try and raise some revenue. We've been getting some of the reaction on the street here in Birmingham.
Thanks very much indeed. Be a primary competitor for Elon Musk's SpaceX company, and this is the United Launch Alliance company's rocket.
Yeah, this is the Vulcan rocket. It's sending a moon lander called Peregrine, and if it touches down safely, it will be the first American craft to make a soft landing on the surface of the moon since Apollo times, and it'll be the very first non-government commercial venture to do so.
So we are looking at the pictures from Cape Canaveral in Florida, and as you can imagine, the eyes of the world very firmly on that Vulcan rocket this morning. And as we know, the most risky part in all of this is always takeoff and landing. We're expecting that mission to take off at
30
exactly
seconds.
7:18. Hopefully there's some sound and we can listen in as they speak to those guys
Control
on the ground.
tower.
Let's have a little listen.
Mm-hmm. No, there's a strange woman who's popped up there.
She's speaking from the United Launch Alliance company, which is this primary competitor.
We should listen to her then, shouldn't we? Anyway, 5 seconds. 4, 3, 2, 1. Launch.
120.
If you're listening on the radio at the moment, we haven't seen that rocket take off just yet.
It's obviously not going to take off at 7:18. So we can see mission control there. They're waiting. No, they've got a minute. They've got a minute now, they're saying now. So they're going to take off at 7:19 and 30 seconds, as it turns out.
If all goes to plan, they will have this soft landing on the moon on February the 23rd. So over a month to get there. And it is always an incredible feat of science and the best brains in the business to get these things off the ground.
So the main thing is it was believed that the moon was bone dry, and that any time that water was detected on the moon, it was deemed as contamination. So they'll just take away the balancing scaffolding away there, and we'll leave you now 45 seconds. It will launch, and more recent missions have revealed the presence of water.
9,
and NASA have confirmed
7,
water molecules
6,
in sunlit
5,
areas of
4,
the moon.
3, we have ignition. And liftoff of the first United Launch Alliance Vulcan rocket, launching a new era in spaceflight to the moon and beyond.
Engines operating. 2 good SRBs, hitting peak pressure on the SRBs. Everything looking good.
So as we watch the spacecraft head up to the outer atmosphere, of course, this is where everybody's
both engines.
heart is in their mouths now, because you're just waiting for control saying everything looking good. It wouldn't be the first time that it suddenly goes bad after that, but it's the separation.
Coming up on 60 seconds into the flight, everything looking good. 2 good engines, 2 good SRBs. Body rates look good, nice and smooth. And we've hit our first throttle point on the BE4s, everything looking good. And we have passed through Mach 1, we are now supersonic, coming up on max Q.
And when they drop the Peregrine lander, it will operate for 2 weeks.
Rolling off on the SRBs.
which is one lunar day.
And we have cutoff on the SRBs coming up on jettison in approximately 30
if
seconds.
that does successfully manage a landing on the moon at the end of February, that'll be the first
15
time in my
seconds,
lifetime
SRB
that something like that has
Jet
happened. The last time was
Can you operate nominally?
1972 during the Apollo missions. This will be the first
Seeing
US
expected
moon
PU
lander
activity on the
since
booster
then.
moons.
No mean feat, and as we've been saying this
And
morning,
we
this is
have
the first ever flight.
separation
The
of
Vulcan rocket is
both
part of
SRBs.
the
Everything looking good. DE4
United Launch Alliance company, and they are
We're 2
trying
minutes into the
to set
mission.
themselves up as a
We are now
competitor to SpaceX, which is of course
We
owned
just heard
by
confirmation of
Elon
solid
Musk.
rocket booster jettison.
Jettison,
We have about
okay.
3 minutes until we reach our next mission event, booster engine cutoff.
They've had separation, which is good to hear. Godspeed to that. So, unmanned. Right, so they're up there. They're able to look down and see what our whole weather picture is like, as can Marco Patanga.
Hello, morning. I'm Marco Patagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see plenty of fine weather across the UK during the week ahead, although cloud will start to increase from the north later, and temperatures will also start to recover after a chilly start. Back to the detail for this morning, though, and we've got quite icy conditions down towards the southeast. A warning in force across parts of southeast England until 10 o'clock this morning. Do take care out and about on the roads, with wintry showers moving in from the east. 1 or 2 showers up across parts of eastern Northern Ireland there as well, but elsewhere across the UK it's set fair, fog and frost soon lifting to give plenty of sunshine, and those showers across the southeast migrate their way westwards as we go through the day across other southern counties of England, turning increasingly to rain as temperatures start to pick up, although it will be a chilly day, and that takes us into quite a chilly evening too. Those showers continue their way westwards into southwest England as we go through into the evening, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather around and turning frosty as we go through the evening under clear skies. So a pretty chilly start as we get into the early hours of Tuesday. Temperatures widely dipping down to, if not just below freezing. And again, a few fog patches in place as we go into Tuesday morning itself. Through the day on Tuesday, the fog and frost will generally lift fairly readily. Plenty of sunshine around, but again, it will be staying quite cold, even though it's early January. Temperatures no better than 4 or 5 degrees during the afternoon. 5 Celsius is 41 in Fahrenheit, and that's several degrees below where they should be for the time of year. So certainly wrap up warm over the next few days. The cold weather is here, set to stay for a few days at least.
Right, we're going to have a debate next. Children, they take time off school because they've got a cough, because they are feeling anxious. We are asking, are we raising a generation of snowflakes? When, under what circumstances did you take time off school? Let us know. We'll be debating that next.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Now, Generation Z or Z, more like Generation Snowflake, it appears, because there's been a rise. You know, I'm coming at this, the script's written in a way that you're very anti this, and I wouldn't necessarily be anti this, because I do think, you know, I look at your two children who are, what, 8 and 5, and if there was a concern, there would be a concern. There's no point trying to pretend there's not, and there's no point trying to pretend the way we did it was the right thing. But this is all about their mental well-being, and the more, you know, the more I live life, the more I come across people who are affected by things that were said to them when they were young. And things and anxiousness that they picked up when they were young. So I think this is something to support, and it seems that 1 in 3 parents, 30% or 33%, support their children in, if they don't feel like school, maybe they shouldn't go.
So are we raising lily-livered children, or is it time to get these kids back into the classroom? Joining us to debate this are two mothers and two self-professed parenting experts, SJ Strum and Roman Norris. Good morning to you both. SJ, can I start with you? You would say that actually we need to listen to our children, accept that the world has changed, and you know, if they have concerns, they should be the parents' concerns as well.
I do, and I think that the communication between schools has become really difficult with parents and schools. Reading the report, it's really sad that up to 40% of parents actually are saying they don't feel their children's needs are met by the time they get to secondary school. And looking at the reason for those absences, a huge amount of it is, like Eamonn said, about mental health, anxiety, and parents feeling that their children's needs aren't met at school. That is a parent's job, but also the second part of it is communication, and feeling that we're not getting any communication from schools of how they're supporting our children academically, individual reports, getting 5 minutes a term with their teachers, and knowing that we're putting our kids in their safe hands. Are our children going to thrive in that environment? So there really is this breakdown in how parents are parenting at home, and schools becoming more authoritarian with things like isolation rooms, things like locking the toilets so children can't go in them. And it feels to parents like it's not doing the best for our generation of teens.
Okay, now, SJ, what would you think about what you're hearing?
That was SJ.
That was SJ. That's where I'm going wrong. Sorry, I've just got this labelled wrongly. So that's Roma. What do you think about what you're hearing?
Yeah, so, I mean, we all know that a lot of what goes on in school is a load of nonsense. And, of course, you know, parents are reacting to that. And at the same time, I think it's really important that our children are able to do things that they find hard. This is what builds resilience. When children don't have limits, it actually feels very unsafe to them. And it also means that they're missing out on the opportunity to stretch their capacity and also build their self-esteem by doing things that are hard. So while I agree that, you know, school isn't necessarily optimum a lot of the time, there is a benefit to actually just having to do hard things sometimes.
Okay, I think that's a very, very interesting point, put very well by Roma there. SJ, what do you think?
I agree. I think if we're opting into the school system, I think a lot of parents these days are hoping that school can fix all these problems. Like, we're so worried about our children's mental health. We're so worried about school being a safe environment for our children, but we're putting all that pressure on schools in a way, and we're not communicating with schools. You know, I'm on my school friends committee, and it's really hard to get parents to show up to have those conversations with schools, and that's us showing up and showing our children. You know, if we show up and if we make the changes and if we have the discussions about what we want to see change, maybe we'll see it happen. I think that's what's really good about what the Centre for Social Justice are recommending, which is this parental participation strategy. I think will really, really help, and it will close that gap. You know, there is this huge trust gap that's happened after the pandemic, that parents are saying, we don't really trust schools anymore. Is it really necessary? Do they have to go every single day? And that will, you know, that will affect their education. So we need to close the gap somehow, and I think that communication is really important. And teaching our children, yes, you do have to be resilient, but with mental health, we know that resilience does also come from taking a break. And I will give my kids a mental health day if their anxiety is really high.
Okay, but what about
really,
yourself,
really
SJ?
It's important to me is recognising that.
When you were young, SJ, what would it have taken for you to get a day off school?
Not much.
Not
Some
much.
days.
Not much. Okay. And what about you, Roma?
Overwhelmed and stressed.
What about you, Roma?
I actually did spend quite a lot of time off school. I was really miserable at school, and I feel like it actually made things harder in a lot of ways because I was always behind with schoolwork. I missed out socially. There was a real gap.
So rather than confronting the problem, you opted out, which didn't make the problem go away.
That's right. There is an unmet need here, and I don't think just keeping kids off school addresses that underlying need. I regularly work with parents to get children back into school when they're school refusing, kids as young as 5 even. And actually, we're being a bit more strategic. I think a lot of what's happened since the pandemic is that child and adolescents' mental health has plummeted. And many kids, you know, don't want to leave their rooms, and parents don't have the tools to respond to that. So I think it's a little bit more nuanced than just keeping them off school.
Well, guys, thank you both very, very much indeed. We're going to get reaction, obviously, from people to that throughout the programme this morning. Thank you both. Thank you.
So it takes me back to when I was little, and my mum, both my parents worked all the way through my childhood, and my mum would only let us stay home if the thermometer gave us a reading for a high temperature, and at that point the grandparents were called up from Sussex, and it was a huge hoo-ha. But I remember having what would today be described as mental health days. In my early teens, I was prescribed sleeping tablets. I was often unable to sleep from the age of 12, really, really bad. But I always got up and went to school. But that's not to say that was the right thing.
But did you feel better when you went into school?
I was fine and happy at school, but there was obviously some underlying stuff going on, and I was worrying and not sleeping. But I mean, you look back to your childhood, you lived through the Troubles in Belfast, you got through school literally through bombs and situations like that. When we look back, we know that the children today wouldn't deal with it in the same way. That's not to say that that's the right thing for today, because the world has changed and the pressures have changed.
My college president, he died last week, and the very Reverend Patrick Walsh, he was Bishop Patrick Walsh actually when he died, and his philosophy was that even though there was all this civil disturbance and there was all this trouble, that nothing was going to get in the way of your education. And we got into school and they locked the gates, and we were in there all day. It was an oasis.
It's a bit like what Roma was saying there, is there are boundaries and then children can feel safe. And there's a lot to be said for that. But I do think we have a mental health crisis on our hands. And, you know,
isn't it better to deal with it earlier rather than leave it later? Paul, what about you at school? What would it have taken for you to get a day off school?
I tell you, there's a couple of things. The first thing that would have been this. See the lip?
Perfected that.
I perfected it. I perfected it when I was about 7.
The wobbling lip.
No, I can't go in.
That looks familiar.
But I still to this day, have nightmares about going into school. It's the same classroom.
Yep.
I've got a test.
Yep.
I'm not prepared.
Yep.
And you know what? And I've tried everything to exercise it. Even went back to the school and went into the classroom. And still, and there was a reunion. And I still dream this. And this is 40 years on, and I still have these nightmares of exams.
Exams coming along, and I also have a reoccurring. I caught the train to school from the age of 11, and I remember I still dream that I'm on the train platform and I don't have my skirt on. And everyone's laughing at me.
Did that happen?
And everything. No.
All right.
But it's that, like, it's a bit like, you know, these imaginary...
Show us what you mean.
No, but it's just that sort of fear of...
It is. It's like the old naked dream. It's like it's underprepared. That's what they always say is underprepared.
When I think now, we had 9 subjects a day, and say you had one double period, which made that 8 subjects a day.
Yeah.
And that was 8 homeworks every single night. And that's why I think I'm so anti-homework as well. Just don't see the point of it.
All the time you spent and just thinking. And I was ill, I had glandular fever when I was about 13 or 14. And I think this is because I missed about 3 weeks of school and watching schools and because you couldn't watch anything decent on the TV because it was always schools, programmes for schools and colleges, and you get that. Do you remember the blue screen? And there was like a clock that would go round. So that was all you could watch on TV. And I just remember I missed so much. Even now, I still dream of these photostats that I had to honestly.
Do you know who I remember from school television? Liam Neeson.
Liam Neeson was on school
Liam Neeson always said, you know, there would be acting roles, you know, a day at the potato crisp factory or whatever it happened to be or whatever. And Liam was in quite a lot of dramas and things that were made for schools.
Like Stop, Look, Listen was one of those.
Right,
shows.
now tonight, Stop, Look, Listen, United against Wigan.
18th in League One, Wigan. Nearly went out of business, didn't they, just earlier on in the year? So comeback for them. Winners of the FA Cup back in 2013. Manchester United last won it 2016. So that is tonight. That's the last third round game before the draw is made. Now, the fourth round draw.
The big headlines to the back about how Arsenal capitulated to Liverpool at home at the Emirates Stadium yesterday. And I don't know how, because they had so much more of the game, hadn't they?
Well, that's it. It's just finishing. You just got to score goals. It's as simple as that. If you haven't got anybody to score the goals, which they don't seem to have at the moment...
Will they put that right in the transfer window?
Well, this is what they're hoping for, but then we've got FFP, which is the financial fair play situation. They can't just go out and spend 80 million on Ivan Toney. They have to sell first. So Mikel Arteta, our great friend Captain Black, is on TV saying, well, you know, don't expect it, but they do need a striker because they're not scoring goals. Do you want me to explain how the draw works, by the way?
People emailing in.
Explain how does the draw work? OK, right, so it starts off alphabetically. So you've got 48 teams originally, and then they're all alphabetically, and then the draw is made.
OK.
Anybody else who is in lower leagues are then from 49 onwards. Now, once we get to the third round
Not
draw...
necessarily alphabetically.
Not necessarily.
Right. Well,
correct. That's not necessarily, my friend.
Celery.
So anyway, so then when we get to the third round, it's always done by whoever is drawn first.
OK.
So, for example, Luton versus Bolton Wanderers... That was drawn. That they have got a playoff. They were the first ones drawn in the third round. So the winner of that will be ball number 1. Ball number 2 will be Wrexham because they were the second drawn. So do you see what I mean? Yeah. So each time, if the first one gets knocked out, then it'll be the second one will be ball number 1. So it's all done from the way the draw is made. Before.
That reminds me of stats or something in maths class.
You know what? I'm going to have nightmares again tonight, thinking about it. My CSE 3 in maths is going to start coming back to me, and I'm going to start shaking. But there is method to the madness.
United against Wigan. It's live. It's on ITV tonight at 7:50. Kick-off at 8.
And hopefully you'll get Maidstone.
Thank you very much.
Can I just pick up the cinnamon debate?
Oh, yeah.
Pete says, I'm with Eamonn on this one. Working class in Liverpool, never had cinnamon in the cupboard, always a tablespoon of cod liver oil every day. Oh, I used to have that. It was terrible.
If you couldn't spell it, then you wouldn't eat it. It's as simple as that.
My mum had bottles and bottles of the stuff. She used to hold your nose to make you swallow it. Glad now, though, as never suffer with ailments, etc. Right, that's interesting. Barbara, I love cinnamon sugar sprinkled on top of coffee. When I lived abroad and had coffee, I was always asked, would you like it topped with chocolate or cinnamon? I've noticed they only ask if you want chocolate here in the UK.
OK, very good. Thank you very much indeed. 20 minutes to 8 on this Monday morning. Can you guess which country has been crowned the world's most overrated holiday destination? Well, I think we could name a few to go with that. Headline makers next.
...2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall?
Let's find out together.
For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6 is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox,
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Here we have Nicola McLean and Alex Armstrong, and they've got the stories making the headlines in the papers today. Alex, Rwanda. Rishi Sunak, despite beating the drum on this one, we're told had reservations about this a couple of years ago.
Yeah, that's right. It's page 2 of The Sun today. Rishi wobbled on Rwanda's scheme. His big concern at the time as he was Chancellor was the cost, 290 million. It's a lot of money for the taxpayer to fork out. And he was concerned that it wasn't effective, funnily enough, despite now, as Prime Minister, pedalling ahead with it. Yeah. These are not the sort of stories you want to be seeing on page 2 of The Sun as you're about to push forward this as one of your major policies in an election year. He defends himself as saying you should always be sceptical of policies, which I do agree with. But, you know, I think it raises the question, was this policy doomed from the get-go when it first started 2 years ago? And is the cost we're paying for it absolutely bonkers.
Well, he was saying, he was asked about this over the weekend, and he was saying that the National Crime Agency say there is no way of solving this problem without a deterrent, and that this was a deterrent, and that, yes, he was sceptical, but that was his job because he's the keeper of the public purse when he was Chancellor. Whether or not people will believe that, or whether they'll think that actually he doesn't really believe in it, and this is, as Robert Jenrick has said, until recently, his ally has described it as sophistry and basically being misleading and disingenuous, his commitment to this scheme, which is why I suppose we're seeing kind of the rise of Reform who take a stronger stance on all of this.
Yeah, I think the reason why this policy is going ahead, if you want my opinion, is that they haven't got anything else ready to go by the time they've got to call an election. Yeah. And if it's all about deterrence, I mean, frankly, that when you interview immigrants on the other side of the channel, they laugh at this plan. They laugh at it. So I don't know whether it's effective at all.
Let's talk about Nicola assisted dying. Esther Ranson, of course, unfortunately suffering stage 4 lung cancer on this, and she is asking for what?
So Esther Ranson is asking for the public to get behind patients like her, and wants everyone to sign a petition for assisting dying. Which, I mean, it's so sad. I was in I'm a Celebrity with Esther Ranson. I loved her. She's such a lovely woman. You know, she's had an unbelievable career. She's, you know, a fantastic mother. You know, I totally back her to be able to make her own decision, you know, rather than going in a terrible way. She can make a choice, and you know, her family know when it's going to happen. I know her daughter's saying, don't judge me and don't say that, you know, I want my mum to die because my mum's my person. I want to be with her forever, but I can't be, so I want to respect her choice. I feel like
if her choice is not to be degraded, not to suffer pain, to have dignity for as long as she can.
Yeah.
Who is anybody to say she can't do that?
Exactly. It feels like, you know, she should be able to. We all should be able to make a choice, shouldn't we? And you know, I'd definitely be getting behind Esther.
So
there's so much love for her. She's campaigned all her life for other people, and now she's doing this campaign not just for herself but for other people in her position. The counter argument in all of this, Alex, is that it could make the pressure increase on those people who feel a burden to their family, that people who are older in society say, well, there is a way out that I can do under the law now if this change is brought in, and, you know, that younger generations, you know, might be sort of pernicious and encourage that to happen. So we have to protect, because it could be a slippery slope.
Right, would you do it or not?
If I was in that circumstance, I would, yeah.
Yes, I would do it.
Don't know, can't answer that.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah, so it's 3-1.
Yeah.
OK, that's all you need to know on that one. So, Alex, hundreds still await this post office scandal. Fujitsu, who supplied the software for all of this, and nobody seems to talk about them so much. I mean, if you're told, whether you're the post office, whether you're the government, whoever you are, whether you're the postmasters and mistresses, that here's the system, this is what it does, and it can't go wrong, basically. It's a difficult position to be in, isn't it?
It's a really difficult position. I mean, this story is a travesty. It really, really is. You know, let's just remember that Fujitsu is still getting contracts of millions of pounds being paid to them, and they're doing a very good job of avoiding the headlines, which I think is the real big story, is Fujitsu here, who've really ducked accountability on this, and I would like to see the government put pressure and more groups and the media put more pressure on them. But, you know, quite frankly, there's also a lot of people here who should be held accountable. Of course, I can't remember her name.
Paula Venables.
Paula Venables, thank you, and now 1 million people have called for a petition for her to hand her CBE.
Look, I just think this position, if you're in the public eye, a certain amount of honour, and whether it's her fault or whether it's not, she was in charge at the time, and she got her CBE for services to the post office or whatever, and therefore she should hand that back.
I completely agree with you, Eamonn. It's a disgrace that she's still waiting to do it. Yeah. There's pressure mounts. I would have done it on day one when it hit 250k.
And I think I would have felt better for it as well.
Me too. Yeah. The other person that hasn't really come out with any accountability is the head of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, who constantly calls for everyone else to resign, but now when time comes for him to be on taking the moral high ground, he won't do it. There's a lot of people here who really should start taking responsibility for their actions and mismanagement.
That's because he was Postal Affairs Minister when
That's
this
correct.
crisis started to emerge in 2015.
That's correct.
Can we talk about the Golden Globes and cheer ourselves up, because there's so much gloom and doom out there.
See, Isabel, you say that. You keep saying about cheering yourselves up. I said, well, honestly, I don't.
Barbie, everybody.
But Barbie didn't win anything.
No, there was a win for Barbie.
What? Signed or something?
I can't remember.
Barbie won the cinematic and box office achievement, but everyone's saying that it was a loss for Barbie, that, you know, that they'd been snubbed because they was expected to win so much more with how...
It was Oppenheimer's night.
Absolutely. So, but, you know, for me, I just want to see what all the celebs are wearing and who looks the best. And, you know, Barbie was absolutely rubbish, so I'm quite happy that it didn't win more. But, yeah, I can't speak, the Global Globe...
Golden Globes.
Easy for me to say. Yeah, it's always a fun one to watch and a bit of light entertainment,
Leo
isn't it?
DiCaprio, is it, in the middle there?
Yeah.
It is interesting. It is interesting. I do get quite angst-ridden about the quality of the productions and things that we've got. And yet, Nicola, your reaction was exactly the same as Isabel's today. She opened the paper and she said, "Oh, look at what everyone's wearing." Yeah. I would never think of looking at what everyone's wearing. I never think of looking at everyone's wearing.
I've done Oscars
programmes with you the morning after the Oscars, and we've been focusing on all the outfits, and you've had lots to say. You're like the most
That's my job.
sartorial...
That's my job.
I'm sorry to call you out on this, but you do genuinely have an interest in what women wear on the red carpet. You know you do.
I'm interested in the films. I'm not interested in what people are wearing to red carpet events.
Well, we should just give the rundown of who won what, really just the top ones. Oppenheimer got the drama motion picture. Cillian Murphy got actor in a drama motion picture. Lily Gladstone got actress in a drama motion picture. Emma Stone got the actress in a musical or comedy motion. And I think the best picture went to Oppenheimer as well. Oh, I've already read that one out. Anyway, so there were lots of... and we should also mention Succession, which was the big small screen winner of the night. I think there were two awards for Kieran Culkin and Sarah Snook, as well as for the show itself.
Well deserved. Brilliant show.
Although Eamonn and I both got a bit bored of it by the end.
Fair enough. Dragged on a bit too long.
Yeah.
One too many seasons.
My point in general is that films are just so worthy now. They're just so worthy, and I find them therefore depressing, and there's no escapism in them. I haven't seen Oppenheimer. I've been put off by people saying it's far too long. I went to watch Napoleon at the weekend. It's nowhere to be seen. You can't get so it was in the cinema for a week and then it's gone. So I don't know what the game is there.
Well, I'll tell you what it is. Apple, who owned that film, are putting it straight onto their streaming platform, so they want to get out to their customers. That's what it is.
That's what it is.
You can watch on Apple. We teased it earlier, so I do want to get to this story. Which country tops the list of the most overrated travel destinations, Nicola?
Dubai. Yeah, so people are saying that it's a materialistic hell. I think Instagram's not helping because we're seeing all the ex-reality
people like you. People like you.
I've got to be honest, I love Dubai.
Yeah, I agree.
But I like going there. I love the hotels. I love the restaurants. The service.
See, the thing about the service in Dubai, people probably aren't used to it. It's not 5-star service. It's 7-star service. And therefore, it's like some huge big playground, isn't it?
It's unbelievable. But I will say that I really do fight with myself for the fact that I love going there, because the way they treat women, the way they treat the LGBTQ+. So I really am a walking contradiction here, because I should hate it, and I do hate all of that, but the place is stunning.
OK. The weather won't be as stunning. Let's have a look.
That warm feeling inside from Boxed Boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, morning. I'm Marco Patagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see plenty of fine weather across the UK during the week ahead, although cloud will start to increase from the north later, and temperatures will also start to recover after a chilly start. Back to the detail for this morning, though, and we've got quite icy conditions down towards the southeast. A warning in force across parts of southeast England until 10 o'clock this morning. Do take care out and about on the roads with wintry showers moving in from the east. One or two showers up across parts of eastern Northern Ireland there as well, but elsewhere across the UK it's set fair, fog and frost soon lifting to give plenty of sunshine, and those showers across the southeast migrate their way westwards as we go through the day across other southern counties of England, turning increasingly to rain as temperatures start to pick up, although it will be a chilly day, and that takes us into quite a chilly evening too. Those showers continue their way westwards into southwest England as we go through into the evening, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather around and turning frosty as we go through the evening under clear skies. So a pretty chilly start as we get into the early hours of Tuesday. Temperatures widely dipping down to, if not just below, freezing. And again, a few fog patches in place as we go into the Tuesday morning itself. Through the day on Tuesday, the fog and frost will generally lift fairly readily. Plenty of sunshine around, but again, it will be staying quite cold, even though it's early January. Temperatures no better than 4 or 5 degrees during the afternoon. 5 Celsius is 41 in Fahrenheit, and that's several degrees below where they should be for the time of year. So certainly wrap up warm over the next few days. The cold weather is here, set to stay for a few days at least.
That warm feeling inside.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News,
the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Hello there, very good morning to you. It is 8 o'clock exactly, Monday, the 8th of January. Breakfast here on GB News with Eamonn and Isabel.
And here's what's leading the news this morning. A petition calling for the former Post Office boss Paula Vanells to be stripped of her CBE has overnight surpassed 1 million signatures following the scandal revelations.
A broken Britain, strike action, rising fuel costs and migration numbers take their toll on British life. As Labour says, the Prime Minister is simply putting vanity before the country by delaying an election.
On a whole raft of issues, from net zero to strike action, Rishi Sunak is under enormous pressure. He's made clear he wants to hold off for a general election until the end of this year. But will he get his wish?
And happy Divorce Day. The first Monday of January traditionally sees a spike in the number of people petitioning for divorce. A relationship expert gives us her take.
What's going to happen is that actually there will still be a large number of people, irrespective of the cost of living crisis, which is hugely florid at the moment, who will just simply say, emotionally, this is too much of a toll for me to take.
And we'll cross live Los Angeles for the latest on the Golden Globes. Oppenheimer wins big, but what sort of night was it for Barbie?
And when you think of Barbie, do you think of Ken or do you think of Paul Coit? He's here in the studio.
I like that. Third round of the FA Cup comes to an end, well, tonight with the final tie, which is Manchester United, who are away at Wigan. How about do you hear about the 15-year-old? 15-year-old play for Blackburn in the FA Cup. So, you know, you think Luke Little would be a young 15-year-old playing football.
Child's play.
It is, exactly.
Well,
anyway.
you think that, you say that, but you see front page of the Daily Telegraph here, and you've got that goalkeeper there is Sir Keir Starmer. He played in Nets. His team lost 14-8.
Was he rush goalie or was he when needed?
Well, why do they put themselves through these situations?
I don't know.
I mean, he's no spring chicken.
It really isn't. That's why he's in goal, probably. Yeah. And you look for the right picture as well. He probably thought, I saved that one, I've got a picture of that, and it's one where he's just looking a little bit wobbly.
Awful. Right, what's the weather going to be like? Marco Britannia has your forecast.
We start to the day today with some wintry showers towards the southeast of England. There will be plenty of fine weather as we head into the afternoon. I'll have all the details later.
And thank you very much indeed for your contributions to our discussions here. Bankrupt councils, Oliver from New Haven. Good morning, Oliver. He says if councils stop paying for free cars and housing to the zillions of perfectly healthy people and benefits, they wouldn't be going bust. Now, this is a thing. Mobility allowances. Car showrooms do very well out of all of this. And a lot of people, not all, what do they say about disabilities? Not all disabilities are visible, don't they say that? Mm-hmm. But people are quite judgmental on this. And a lot of people seem to get very nice cars for no apparent reason. Your views welcome.
Yeah, lots of views as well about Generation Snowflake. Deb says, I'm 66. My mum used to call me Anxious Annie. I was diagnosed with severe anxiety and depression in my 30s. My GP told me to buck my ideas up and have a baby. Still here, worked full-time for 50 years. No wonder the country is broken. So not much sympathy there.
But you see that Anxious Annie business there? Today is Monday, right? How many people would have been so anxious yesterday or today
Sunday night
as a result of that? So, you know, and there's no real logical reason for it. When you can see the reason, you know nothing's going to happen, but yet people are still anxious about that. Surely you could take a pill for that. No, that's the wrong thing. Don't take a pill. Surely you could, there's some exercise you could do or something.
They're saying, this is on anxiety. Paul said, sorry, anxiety, depression, get off your phones, get outside, go walking or get the kids outside playing, not on phones or tablets. I hated school from 7 years of age, but got on with it. Had very little education, but wanted to work and earn money, and I've done that all my life. It's just a woke world. Why do schools and government have to sort your child's life out? So there we go.
Do you know, I think, Paul, you hit something right on the head there. A lot of people, an awful lot of people are or should be motivated by money, motivated by paying their rent, paying for their hire purchase on their car, whatever it happens to be. And therefore, there's no other alternative, so that's what they must do. Other people are vocational and they want to give to society. Different folks for different strokes. Let us know, gbviews@gbnews.com. So here we are on this Monday morning. Hopefully we won't make your life too stressful today. It's been described as the most widespread miscarriage of justice in history. 700 post office branch managers wrongly convicted of theft.
And we know it was all down to faulty software, yet most victims have not received any compensation. And a new television documentary about the so-called Horizon scandal has sparked
Well, it's a drama. It's not a documentary. It's a drama. Yeah. So the Prime Minister has confirmed there will be a meeting later to create a settlement plan for those wrongly convicted.
Well, more than 1 million people overnight have signed an online petition calling for Paula Vernells, who led the post office when submasters were unfairly prosecuted, to be stripped of her honour.
OK, let's bring in former sub-postmaster at West Bolton and a campaigner, Christopher Head. Christopher, were you badly affected by what went on?
Yeah, I mean, I ran my office from 2006 when I was just 18. I took it over as the youngest postmaster in the country. And over the years, we had, shortfalls, a few £100 a month. And it was in 2014 that I had a lot of problems with the Horizon system. It was showing that data was corrupt. It wasn't sending data off to the central data centre. And we had engineers out over and over again to try and resolve the issue, and it led to a shortfall of just over £40,000, and within weeks it doubled to over £80,000, which obviously then started suspension, and then went on to a criminal investigation, which was then dropped with no reason, and then civil proceedings. They started that. They were eventually, after a few months, put on hold because the group litigation order had just been...
My friend, anybody who's been through the courts before will know how bad it is, what you went through there. But at what stage did you ever get to a stage where you thought, is this just me? Is this happening to anyone else? Did you guys start talking to each other?
A bit of a delay on the line. We believe
more than a delay. I think he's. Are you, Christopher? Are you there?
I can't hear you, Eamonn. I can't hear any sound at all.
Christopher, can you hear me now?
Oh, what a shame.
Oh, what a big shame. Well, let's phone Christopher back here and we'll just talk about this until we get him again.
Because that was the point that we've been hearing from other victims. It'd be interesting to see if that was the case with Christopher, that a lot of these people, it's not easy to become a sub-postmaster. You go through a lot of vetting, you have to be good with money and all the rest of it, and find themselves in these situations where it's just not adding up. Let's bring Christopher Head back in. We have re-established that connection. Hello, welcome back.
The question was just, at what stage, if at all, did the postmasters and mistresses start talking to each other?
I think obviously when we saw in the drama with Alan, that started in about 2010 when he started to get a small group together. But you're still cut off from everybody. You do hear maybe a couple of small stories and things, but because you've been told that you're the only one, you just think, well, maybe something has gone wrong in them offices. You kind of doubt the other postmasters, which, is a horrible thing to say, but, that's just how the post office portrayed it.
But just talk us through the moment you realised that nobody believed your innocence and that actually you were going to face not only a suspension from your job, but I believe this was going to be pursued through the courts. Was there a particular moment that you can remember when you came to terms with what actually this miscarriage of justice?
Yeah, I think it's still hard to put into words, really. But I think, because I lived in such a small village community, and I actually had been in the business since I was 12, because I'd actually delivered newspapers there from the start. So, you knew everybody in the community. And then obviously when everybody's talking about it behind your back and everything like that, so it's obviously a damage to your reputation. And I think when you first go to the solicitor, and obviously you met with the post office investigators, and they've actually read you your rights, and they tell you that you're under caution, and I think that's when it really hits home. And it was only, like I said, when in late 2016 when the group litigation order got off, and I actually realised how many more people were involved in that, and I joined up, and you realise that there's hundreds of people involved, and yet all this time I've been going through this, like you've been on your own.
Well, there's a few things to ask you, and the first is, who would do this job? After the publicity associated with this, would you advise anyone to sign up to be a postmaster or mistress?
I mean, look, I mean, I really enjoyed the job. I love the job. I love the people, you know, in order to help in the community. What you don't enter that kind of job in order to make a lot of money. You know, you do it in order to serve the community. And obviously, there's a lot of post offices still out there, and you know that they still are the main point of contact for a lot of people out there. You know, that don't see anybody else. So I think, yes, we still need to do that, but there needs to be a huge amount of change. You know, that there needs to be a massive change in the contract that post office still haven't put into place. You know, from the original judgment in 2019 in the High Court, they haven't enacted them changes.
I would think
there just needs to be a full reset of the relationship.
Well, I still think it would be very hard to get anybody to sign up for that job nowadays after what's been there, which shows the power of TV, the power of a drama to make this real for everybody who wasn't affected by it. But tell me this, whose head should roll, or whose head, politically wise, from the post office's point of view, from Fujitsu, who basically needs to be singled out here?
Well, I think it's very difficult to single out one individual, because I mean, obviously it's gone on.
No, but don't give me 10 then.
I mean, the reason I think that. Yeah. Well, I think that obviously the reason that Paula Vanel's is being singled out is because she was made aware on countless occasions of the problems, and obviously she was in the position at that particular time to do something about it and failed to do so. So I think that is why that's been the case. But you know, you roll back over the years that, you know, there is obviously people in Fujitsu, there is people in government or ministers or even, you know, civil servants that maybe try to have damage limitation, let's say, in order to try and make this a hope that it will go away. So there's countless number of people. So you had previous CEOs at Post Office of Adam Crozier. There's the list is endless. So we need the inquiry to finish so we get to the bottom of that, and obviously for the Met Police to do their investigation.
Yeah, and Christopher, you estimate that you personally lost around £100,000 as well as your job, your reputation, all the rest of it. Do you believe that you can and will ever be compensated fully for what you've had to go through?
Well, I mean, that estimation was put out, I think, in the Shields Gazette, my local paper, and that was back in 2015. So, you know, when you calculate, you know, the damage that it's done since, and I mean, that was just, you know, my basic estimation. I mean, that's just isn't what's being calculated by forensic accountants for the, you know, the loss of income, the reputational damage, the loss of the actual business and everything else that adds up to it. You know, it's substantially more than that, actually. And obviously the compensation schemes that I've seen that have been run by Post Office and now the new ones by the government, the awards for the damage that's been inflicted on people, they don't go far enough. I think, you know, David Davis has mentioned it before, that, you know, we need to take the expensive lawyers out of it from Post Office and put it into independent hands. But the government's own scheme is doing exactly the same thing. So, you know, this just needs to be taken out. Somebody independent needs to oversee it. Needs to be a High Court judge or something overseeing it to make sure that everybody is fully compensated to what they deserve.
Well, Christopher, my heart goes out to you. Really, condolences to you and all that you've been through. And I hope you get justice, whatever form, whatever way people envisage justice. I hope it's a decent justice for you. Thank you very much indeed for your time this morning. And good luck to you.
Thank you.
Right. So let's go to Olivia Utley now. She's in our Westminster studio for us this morning because Rishi Sunak facing a lot of problems, of which, Olivia, this post office strike is just one.
Well, he is indeed, exactly. We're expecting a lot of questions in the House of Commons later today. They go back today, first day back since Christmas, and we're expecting a lot of questions to MPs from all parties and ministers about the Horizon scandal. Pretty much everyone has been implicated in this. Rishi Sunak made the comment that all of this happened. He wants to get it all fixed as quickly as possible. It all happened back in 1999. He's sort of implicitly trying to imply there that he had nothing to do with it. He was probably still at school in 1999, but essentially ministers from every party have had opportunities over all of these years to look into this properly, and there is going to be a lot of accusations flying around in the House of Commons from everyone, to the current sitting government, to the leader of the Liberal Democrats, Ed Davey, who was Post Office Affairs Minister at the time and didn't properly look into the case. He believed what the Post Office told him. But as you say, Eamonn, this is just one problem facing Rishi Sunak at the moment. He's also under a lot of pressure about his new oil and gas bill, which will essentially allow more exploration in the North Sea. Chris Skidmore, who's been an outspoken critic of the government's line on the environment for a long time, is now saying that he's going to quit the Conservative whip. He's going to step down as an MP in order to push back hard against Rishi Sunak. There will be other net zero hawks in the House of Commons who will also oppose this bill. Alok Sharma, the former president of COP26, has indicated that he might vote against it. And then there's also, of course, the option to abstain on it, and it's possible that former Prime Minister Theresa May might do that. So there's a lot of pressure in that quarter. Also, of course, that doctor strike is still running, the longest strike in NHS history, lasting 144 consecutive hours, not due to end until this week. There is a lot of pressure on Rishi Sunak and the Health Secretary, Victoria Atkins, to get that sorted. How that's going to work, we just don't know. So far, doctors have been offered about an 11% pay rise, all things taken into account. They're asking for a 35% pay rise. There doesn't seem to be much common ground to be found there. And then, of course, don't forget, there is the Rwanda bill. Rishi Sunak managed to head off a rebellion at the end of last year, but there are still plenty of Conservative MPs, particularly on the right of the party, who thinks the bill doesn't go far enough, and they're quite likely to rebel or at least abstain when that bill reaches its third reading later this month. Rishi Sunak is under an awful lot of pressure.
Thank you very much indeed, Olivia. Thank you. Let us know what you think about all of that. 60 minutes past the hour.
Now, more marriages break down in January than at any other time of the year, often after the festive period, and people decided enough is enough, I just can't live with you anymore. So much so that the first working Monday in January is often dubbed Divorce Day.
Solicitors are expecting more than 40,000 inquiries in the next few weeks, as Lisa Hartle reports.
January is usually the busiest time for divorce lawyers as people reflect on their lives and consider what changes they want to make. But due to the cost of living crisis, this year could be different.
Well, traditionally, Monday is described as Divorce Day because it's seen a huge spike in referrals to divorce lawyers as people have spent arguably extended periods of time with their loved ones over the Christmas period, so much so that they have ceased to be their loved ones, and they have probably decided, actually, I can take no more Christmases with this person.
Neil Russell, a family law solicitor, says they get the most divorce inquiries in January, but financial pressures mean some people are delaying proceedings.
What with the growing utility costs, which are burdening families on their own, two lots of those utility costs are even more difficult to manage. The other factors, a big factor, are mortgages. They want out of their marriage, but sadly the finances do not always permit for them to do so. The other thing that we've noticed nowadays, where people can't necessarily afford to get divorced, is a nesting arrangement, whereby the parents take it in terms of, say, renting a cheaper property, where they share the occupation of for 2 or 3 days a week, so the kids don't have to move, but the parents move in and out.
Research from Legal & General has found more than 270,000 couples have delayed splitting due to financial pressures.
1 in 5, 19% of our sample of recent divorces were delayed due to financial reasons. So, you know, the kind of common financial worries around the cost of divorce proceedings, but also about what will happen to their income as a result, and so much uncertainty in market around the economic conditions and whether or not people will even have jobs going forward.
But psychologist Lucy Beresford says that she finds this research doesn't match her experience with clients.
We've actually had other moments in time where you would have thought things might have compromised people's ability to get a divorce. We had the financial crisis in 2009-10. We had a housing crisis, so people found it harder to move house and create 2 households. We also had the pandemic where people couldn't leave their house, and yet divorces still happened. And I suspect that what's going to happen is that actually there will still be a large number of people, irrespective of the cost of living crisis, which is hugely florid at the moment, who will just simply say, emotionally, this is too much of a toll for me to take.
With the financial situation still so difficult for so many, it could be some time yet before unhappy couples finally get the divorce they want. Lisa Hartle, GB News, London.
Right, on that note, let's get a check on your forecast.
Hello, morning. I'm Marco Petagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see plenty of fine weather across the UK during the week ahead, although cloud will start to increase from the north later and temperatures will also start to recover after a chilly start. Back to the detail for this morning though, and we've got quite icy conditions down towards the southeast. A warning in force across parts of southeast England until 10 o'clock this morning. Do take care out and about on the roads with wintry showers moving in from the east. One or two showers up across parts of eastern and Northern Ireland there as well, but elsewhere across the UK it's set fair, fog and frost soon lifting to give plenty of sunshine, and those showers across the southeast migrate their way westwards as we go through the day across other southern counties of England, turning increasingly to rain as temperatures start to pick up, although it will be a chilly day, and that takes us into quite a chilly evening too. Those showers continue their way westwards into southwest England as we go through into the evening, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather around and turning frosty as we go through the evening under clear skies. So a pretty chilly start as we get into the early hours of Tuesday. Temperatures widely dipping down to, if not just below, freezing. And again, a few fog patches in place as we go into Tuesday morning itself. Through the day on Tuesday, the fog and frost will generally lift fairly readily. Plenty of sunshine around, but again, it will be staying quite cold. Even though it's early January, temperatures no better than 4 or 5 degrees during the afternoon. 5 Celsius is 41 in Fahrenheit, and that's several degrees below where they should be for the time of year. So certainly wrap up warm over the next few days. The cold weather is here, set to stay for a few days at least.
No such problems in LA last night. Absolutely boiling there. We'll have all the details on the glitz and the glamour and the winners and the losers from the Golden Globes after this.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train. Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa!
Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Wake up to the headlines with Headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Every Sunday from 11, join Michael Portillo.
There will be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. The Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Oppenheimer, the big winner at the Golden Globes, took 5 awards, including top prize for the drama motion picture.
Cillian Murphy won Best Male Actor and Robert Downey Jr. won Best Male Supporting Actor. Christopher Nolan won Best Director, so they'll be thrilled with that.
From a television point of view, Succession scored the most wins following its well-received final season.
Well, let's talk through some of the highlights with the showbiz journalist Ellie Phillips and friend of the programme. Good morning to you, Ellie. Look, it was a bit of a washout as far as Barbie was concerned, and all about the big stars in Oppenheimer and Succession, as we were just discussing.
Yeah, absolutely. A brilliant night for Oppenheimer, and no surprise, really, it was tipped to do really well. And the thing about Golden Globes is people are like, I don't understand, how is this best picture and this best picture and this best actor and this best actor, but it's split into drama and comedy. So one of the big upsets on the night was actually that Barbie didn't win best comedy. It was beaten out, and in a kind of shock move, if you will, because it was beaten by a motion picture called Poor Things, which isn't out yet in the UK. It actually comes out on January 12th. It's a bizarre, very bizarre science fantasy film fiction, and it stars Emma Stone. She also won Best Actress in the comedy, the movie, and obviously beating Margot Robbie therefore. But it's basically about a woman who's brought back to life after killing herself, and then her body is controlled by a baby's brain. Very odd, very bizarre, but apparently Emma Stone's performance is phenomenal. So she's won that one there. And like you said, in the Oppenheimer, they did really well. Again, no shock there. I think Cillian Murphy winning Best Actor might be a shock to some of the people that he was up against, because I know obviously it's always a hotly contested category. He did brilliantly well there.
Can you just name some of the people he was up against?
Yeah,
I spotted the actor, the star of Fleabag, who was interrupted in Hamlet last week in London. I can't think of his name.
Yeah.
Who else
so
was
there's
up
Bradley Cooper, he's up for Maestro, and he was really up for Leonardo DiCaprio for Killers of the Flower Moon, Coleman Domingo is Rustin, Andrew Scott, All of Us, Strangers, and Barry Keoghan, who was in Saltburn, who's a massive star, Irish star, who we were really hoping to do really well there, but they all lost out, and I think it was thought that it was going to be Cillian Murphy or Bradley Cooper, potentially Leonardo DiCaprio in there. And actually, his co-star won Best Actress for Killers of the Flower Moon, which was an amazing feat, an amazing thing to see, because she is the first Native American woman to win Best Actress. Her name's Lily Gladstone. She won it for Killers of the Flower Moon. She opened her speech using the language of the Blackfeet Nation, which is the tribe that she belongs to. So it was an incredible moment for kind of the history of the awards to have that for Lily Gladstone.
Interesting that you mention that, because it has been a bit scandal hit, hasn't it, the Golden Globes in recent years, and they've had a big sort of PR makeover. Do you think they were successful in overcoming all of the critics this year?
Yeah, I do actually think so. So it was the first year it's gone back to Sunday night kind of prime time slot in America after it was kind of shunted to midweek. I quite like the host. People are a bit divided. Joe Coy, it's his first time not only hosting the Golden Globes, but hosting any award. I thought he was hilarious, the stuff he put in there. But actually, there was one of my favourite comedians, Jim Gaffigan. He was one of the presenters, and he was hilarious. It wouldn't surprise me if they signed him up to host next year. he was really good. And I actually think the winners, it was a really good, diverse mix of winners, and all, fair play. You wouldn't ever say there were tokenistic winners in there. They were all incredibly talented across the board. Something for me that kind of irks me a little bit about this is actually in the television category. So there's categories for drama, comedy, and then limited series. And in the comedy category, Jeremy Allen White won Best Male Actor for, it's called The Bear. It's brilliant. And Ayo Edebiri, she won Best Actress. But The Bear, I don't think is a comedy. I've never laughed once watching it. It's brilliant. It's an amazing watch. But when I watch it, I'm like sucked into it as a drama. And so it was a shame, I think, that it was in that category, because then I think others kind of lost out from getting the attention that they really deserve. Because if you look at some of the what I would class as actual comedies that were up for it, Only Murders in the Building was up for it, and others that you watch and they just really, really make you laugh. Ted Lasso, Abbott Elementary, Jury Duty. The Bear kind of seemed like brilliant actors, brilliant TV series, but I just don't think it's a comedy at all. That was an odd one. But a win that we did have for the UK, which is a really good one, was a new category. Ricky Gervais won Best Comedy Stand-Up, essentially. It's odd to think that of all the actors and actresses from England that were over there representing us, that Ricky Gervais was one of the ones that came through on the night, but we'll take the win.
And did he make a speech? Because he's always hilarious off the cuff, but a bit dangerous,
no,
maybe.
He didn't. He wasn't there for that one. I think maybe they were like, probably best not for that one. Which is why I'm actually hoping that Jim Gaffigan, this comedian, if you haven't heard of him, he is so sarcastic, so hilarious. I'm hoping he takes over next year.
Thank you very much indeed. Never heard of him.
No, me neither. I didn't actually hear who she said was the main host of the event last night.
That was him, Jim Gaffigan or something.
He was the co-host, but anyway. The expert on The Bear, of course, is Paul Coyte.
Actually, it was Cocaine Bear, wasn't it?
That was the film you saw.
Yeah.
But the TV show that Ellie was talking about that won the best comedy. Yeah. The Golden Globes is called The Bear, which is about a chef who then takes over a sandwich cafe that shows how funny it is, because his brother had committed suicide, so he comes in and takes over, and it's not really a laugh a minute, but it's one of those very amusing.
It shouldn't be in the comic category.
Because they call it a drama comedy these days, so that's
They should have just given it to Cocaine Bear.
Just give it all to Cocaine Bear.
That is a funny film. It is. OK, thank you very much indeed. Are we doing sport now or after the break? Sport now. Right, OK. Well, my friend, OK, what have you got for us?
Well, I'll tell you what we got. FA Cup, really. Third round of the FA Cup. Liverpool beat Arsenal 2-0. Arsenal can't score goals. It's as simple as that. So Liverpool are through to the fourth round draw, which is later. Man City put 5 past Huddersfield. The news there, Kevin De Bruyne is back. Luton draw with Bolton. Bristol City got a draw at West Ham. Did you see the Patrick Bamford goal? Didn't see the Patrick Bamford goal?
No, but I believe it was a beaut.
Unbelievable goal at Peterborough. I played one game, by the way, one professional game in my entire life for Peterborough United.
Did you?
Yeah, I did. I was given 20 minutes against Aston Villa.
What position?
I was playing on the wing, but what happened is that the manager had said, OK, well, you come along and play 20 minutes. I didn't realise, though, because they leave the shirts and all the... Because, I'm trying to feel at home. So anyway, I put the stuff on, put the shorts, the pants, the socks. Anyway, I walk out for the warm-up. I'm thinking... God, it feels really warm around, the pants area, really hot, and my eyes started to water. So I was thinking that maybe that's what professional players do, is spray Ralgex in their pants. Yes. But it was only afterwards I realised that they were actually doing that because they knew I was playing.
It was your first game?
It was my first game.
And your last game?
And my last ever professional game.
Yeah.
Yeah. Ron Atkinson said, "Who is the stupid wearing number 11?" And that was me. It's not bad, is it? So anyway.
Were you on his team?
No, he was managing Aston Villa.
Very good.
Wrexham beat Shrewsbury, by the way.
Yeah.
Ryan Reynolds is going to be happy. They're through to the fourth round. The draw is at 7:50 tonight, just before Manchester United play Wigan Athletic.
The mighty Wigan.
The mighty Wigan. Former winners of the Cup. 2013, had a very bad year, looked like they may even go out of existence, but they were saved, and they were 18th in League One.
Who did they beat that year?
It was
10 years ago.
Was it? Yeah, I can't even remember. It wasn't you, was it? It wasn't Manchester United.
No.
It was Manchester City. It was Man City that year.
Get out of it.
It was. It was Man
Get
City.
out of it.
Yeah, actually it was. Yeah, things were different then. I'm sure it was Manchester City. I'm sure we're about to be told otherwise, but I believe it was Man City back in 2013. So you confident about tonight? You're confident?
Aye.
Right.
Aye.
The phrase is up for the cup, which we used to use back in...
Up for the cup.
Aye, everybody's up for the cup, and that's what the FA are using.
I like it.
Up for the cup tonight. 4th round, straight before the draw. So
Good man, Paul. Thanks very much.
Pleasure.
We'll not see you again.
Whatever. Is that it? Am I done?
No,
You're done.
we're not axing you. We're just saying love you and leave you.
OK, just for today.
Just for now.
See you tomorrow.
Adieu.
Thanks, my friend. Thank you.
We are asking, are you single? Stay tuned. We're going to be going through the top 5 tips to find love on dating apps in Headline Makers next.
There you go.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan, Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks, the admission's free.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Joining us going through the newspapers, we've got Nicola McLean and we have Alex Armstrong. Nice to see both of you. Alex, the Conservatives have selected a... Well, you tell us who they've selected to stand in for Peter Bone.
So let's just for the audience's sake, Peter Bone is a disgraced former MP is now having a by-election to replace him because he was found to have indecently exposed himself. There's more to that story, but we'll touch on that one maybe another time. His now Conservative colleagues have selected a new candidate, and believe it or not, it is his girlfriend they have selected, someone called Helen Harrison, 25, 26 years the younger of Peter Bone, is now the candidate to replace him in the by-election, and I just can't grasp what the Conservative Party are thinking. It's like they want to throw away
Are they
their
still
election.
together? Because this has happened before in the Conservative Party with a disgraced MP, I think the Elphick.
That's right,
But they were separated.
That's right.
And she then stepped into his shoes.
They're still together, as far as we know.
Still together. The 71-year-old and his much younger girlfriend.
What do you make of that age difference, Nicola?
We were talking about age gaps in the green room. I find it really. I think when men go out with really young women, they're really chastised. But when it's the other way round, it doesn't seem. You know, like Luke Littler, he's 16, he's got a 21-year-old girlfriend. For me, because I've got a 17-year-old son, I find that really odd. But nothing's really been made of it. But if a 21-year-old male was going out with a 16-year-old girl, I think a lot more would be made of it.
I mean, I think the whole story is nuts. I just don't know how the Conservative Party have thought that the electorate aren't going to go, well, this is your girlfriend. I mean, he's going to be involved in everything that she's doing. It's bonkers.
Yeah, that's very strange.
So it comes to a dog, right? So you have a dog, and come this month, American XL bully dogs should be put down if they haven't got an owner. Is that right? Is that what it is? I think that's right. Anyway, Nicola, what's the situation there?
So, yeah, you're right. So lots of people, as soon as this come out, that if you didn't have, you know, if you had an XL bully, they'd be put to sleep or they have to be muzzled. Lots of people gave them up. So there's so many XL bullies looking for rehoming and obviously not getting home, so therefore gonna be killed. But vets are now refusing to do it, which I think is it's a positive thing for me. I mean, I personally wouldn't have an XL bully, but I think that it's absolutely ridiculous that people have to put their dogs down. It's just all really, really sad, but it does provoke such a strong reaction. I mean, what do you think about XL bullies? Do you...
I think the evidence shows that they are not safe. I don't know what the solution is, and I certainly don't have an opinion about euthanising dogs, but I certainly can see that there is a very strong link between not only fatal attacks, but maiming children, right across adults as well. And I think the government were absolutely right to step in, and as they did.
But you wouldn't.
I mean, I wouldn't have one of these dogs because I totally agree. There is so much evidence, but it's not just this breed. It's not just this breed. I think that we need to look at like the bigger picture. Also, you know, how easy it is to buy a dog, and you know, and what sort of owners are buying these sort of dogs. I think it's just really sad, and I'm glad that vets are sort of stepping in and not just killing innocent dogs.
Well, meanwhile, the COVID inquiry is costing us £200,000 a day. Tell us more, Alex.
Yes, yeah, already cost us £56 million. I mean, it's crazy, isn't it? They spent just under 18 million between July and the end of September. That's before the second phases began. We're now working at this out 200 grand a day or 1.4 million a week. I just think taxpayers are going to be having their hands in their heads in their hands over this, thinking, why are we spending all this money to travel? The big problem here is they're travelling across the country. They're zooming around everywhere.
Like a boy band tour, as the Telegraph was describing it.
Like a boy band tour. Lady Hallett is the chairman of this committee. He's already received £255,000 as part of this. Still, it seems to me that they're taking the mick. This is a very, very important inquiry that's asking a lot of questions about politicians' behaviour. Maybe they should start looking at their own behaviour, frankly, because this is very, very abusive of taxpayer money when they really should be getting to the heart of what went wrong at government and what went wrong to have caused so many deaths and what we could learn from it rather than touring the country and speaking to families everywhere. I think we could do this on Zoom, I think, perhaps.
Yeah, see what you mean. Nicola, here is a row and a half. It is in the Sun, and it concerns Strictly dancers Giovanni and Amanda, I think it is, who was dancing with him this year.
Yeah, so Amanda has been diagnosed with postnatal stress
post-traumatic stress.
That's it. Thank you so much. After dancing with Giovanni, 2 complaints have been made against him, and 3 other stars are unhappy. But the BBC won't step in, so they're refusing to do an inquiry to find out if, you know, is he treating people badly? Is he pushing people too hard? But Amanda is not going away. She's asked for all the footage to be given to her so that she can go through it all to see, you know, if there was wrongdoing. And should they look into the behaviour? They probably should, shouldn't they? You know, if two stars have actually...
Have you taken part in it?
No, I it's probably the only reality show that I haven't done.
But they've had Richie as a partner of his, Richie Anderson, Faye Tozer, Laura Whitmore, Ranveer Singh, and Amanda Abington. So 5 celebs have all fallen foul of his demands.
Yeah, although we should point out Giovanni isn't here to defend himself. I'm sure he would have his own take in all of this, and in the lack of right of reply, we just have to say at this point they are allegations at this point that he, you know, this could be hugely detrimental to his reputation, so he deserves that comment, certainly. But you know what, it does raise the question about whether or not reality TV can sometimes push people too far, whether that's, you know, Strictly or any of the other ones that we see today, to create this entertainment that we all enjoy. I mean, you've been there, you've been through that. What do you think?
Oh, I definitely think that that reality TV pushes people too far, and I really feel like there's been a change. I think some of the things that happened to me in Big Brother and on I'm a Celeb wouldn't be acceptable in today's reality TV. But I do think that they should make an inquiry. I don't think they should just say no. And for him as well, as you say, it's detrimental to his reputation. So do the inquiry and either clear him or not, rather than just leaving it up in the air. But yeah, reality TV is not for the faint-hearted.
It's an interesting one, Alex, isn't it? Would you respond better to carrot or stick?
Probably stick, to be honest. Yeah, I think so. I mean, look, I don't actually watch I'm a Celebrity or many reality TV shows, but I do hear those stories constantly of people saying behind the scenes it's pretty rough. And, you know, Love Island is a prime example. A lot of those young people come out of there pretty disturbed afterwards, and you've obviously seen some terrible tragedies.
We've been talking about how today is peak divorce day. People get through the Christmas holidays, they decide, ugh, had enough of you, and they contact their solicitor. Which leads me to the next story, Nicola, because obviously these people will be looking at a future as a singleton, and there are some top tips. Apparently yesterday was the busiest day of the year for dating apps, and there are top tips on how to get successful through dating apps.
There is. So number 1 is show the real you.
Oh dear.
So no filters. That's not good. 2, more words, more possibilities. 3, showcase your interests. 4, express your personality. 5, be open about what you're looking for. I mean, it all seems quite straightforward, no?
I mean, I'm bamboozled by this. I thankfully found my husband before all of this was a big thing, and I would absolutely hate to find love this way. But I do think you have more chance of a compatibility match when you take out kind of lust and all that chemistry, and you go, on paper, do we match?
Yeah, but that's boring, isn't it?
But then if the chemistry comes, that's when you marry them, right?
Right.
I mean, I think it is. Those apps are based just on lust immediately, because you're looking at a picture, aren't you? So the first thing you see is lust. Do I fancy that person? Do I find them attractive? So I think initial reaction. But then maybe that's true to real life as well. If you went on a date and you didn't find someone attractive, would you still carry on dating them? I don't know.
I went on a blind date with my husband. That's how we met, and I already had a plan in case it wasn't. I was like, right, I've got an escape plan. And he was like, would you really have done it? It just left me sitting there. I was like, yes, 100%. I wouldn't have even thought twice about it.
Well, you'd have gone to the loo and not come back.
And just run, 100%.
That would be great reality TV, that would.
You know, this business of showcasing your interests, I'm not sure I have any
That's
interest.
you watching the TV for 6 hours, football, or back to back.
I just don't know.
I don't think I do either. Like, I've not got a hobby.
Yeah, have you a hobby? Have you?
Got time for a hobby?
Yeah.
No.
I guess my interests are...
Yeah.
I don't know. Also, this will be open about what you're looking for. You can't tell men straight away, I'm looking for someone to marry and have babies with. They'll run to the mountains, and you never... You always have to trick them into thinking you're just here for a good time, not for a long time, when actually you're looking for your husband. Surely. Or is that just me?
Well, I did the same. I'm with you. I'm totally with you.
Okay. Rishi Sunak has been accused of selling nonsense, Alex, after he threatened to snatch cash from families on universal credits to pay for his tax cuts.
That's right. Well, obviously they want to do more, obviously, because this is the only thing they have to try and win their election now. It's giving people tax cuts, and you know, and frankly, I think that there's been enough cuts over the years, and I think this is coming back to the nasty party years of the Conservative Party again. They've been slammed as cruel, as the highest cost of living crisis, you know, in living memory. People are struggling to pay their bills because of high energy prices and other mismanaged parts of the economy. And now they're saying, look, you've had years to do this, you've had years to reform the universal credit system, and now you want to scrap it because you're trying to sell votes to people you're trying to buy votes through income tax cuts. So, I mean, I think, you know, this is fair criticism of the Tories, but they are trying to build up their war chest to another election. I just don't know whether the country's really going to respond to it this way anymore. I think that people are sort of fed up with hearing we're going to get tax cuts, but we're only going to have to cut something else to deliver it.
Well, yeah, but where would you make your cuts?
Well, this is it. And I think the argument is, why can't we grow the economy rather than find creative ways to give people their money back? We should try and grow our way out of this rather than try and sink the ship further.
What's your view about Keir Starmer playing in nets for his team, who lost 14-8, it has to be said?
Well, I don't know. I mean, I don't think Keir Starmer was a very charismatic man, and I think a lot of this is put on to try and make him seem like one of the people. I mean, it's funny that there's cameras around and stuff like this. Listen, I really hate this time of year when all the politicians start to become, I'm one of you, you know, I have a normal life. They don't have these normal lives. So, as many of us know,
It was interesting over the weekend, they're hearing him say that the thing that keeps him awake at night is how this year in particular, and if he wins office, how that will impact his kids. Very tender age, both of them just early teens.
Yeah.
Must be difficult. They'd presumably have to move house, move school.
Yeah, move into one of the most famous homes in the country.
Yeah, and, you know, often PMs have slightly younger children. I don't know why. I think that's a bit easier to kind of translocate them. But teens, I think it's tricky, and I'm not sure it's necessarily good for youngsters.
No. Meanwhile, we've got Sadiq Khan, who has bowed to rail unions by offering a big pay increase to avoid London Underground strikes. Now, you know, you could say this is what a future Labour government will bring. You could say it's the right thing to do. What would you say?
The strikes, I mean, they had to do something, didn't they? You know, that's something needed to give. So it's probably the correct thing. I mean, there was meant to be strikes today, wasn't there? And then they got called off. So I'm all for giving them more money.
Yeah. So the union has announced it has suspended its planned 4-day action just 20 minutes before disruption was due, because the Mayor of London has found extra money for a significantly improved funding offer. So this looks as if this could well be settled. And Alex, that's the same as we have with the doctors as well, and the trained people. Generally as well. What's your view?
I just don't know where all this money comes from last minute. You either had the money or you didn't, or you're trying to hold the country hostage. And, I mean, a lot of people would have been making plans. I mean, my business, we almost had to shut the company for a week. Everyone was making new plans. And then last minute, we're telling people on Sunday, come to the office, come to the office. Yeah. It's a bit nuts that we're all being held hostage over this. I'm not against paying people fairly, and I think a 5% rise is actually not a bad offer compared to a lot of people aren't getting rises at all. 35% for the junior doctors. I don't know if I agree with 35%. I think that's a lot. For
but they have said they would talk about this over a small amount over various years.
Fair enough. Yeah.
So maybe there is a deal to be done there.
I hope so, because I think that NHS crisis is only going to get worse the longer it drags on. But whether this is thanks to Labour or thanks to money that already exists, I don't know.
ULEZ cash. Lots of people suspect is
whatever it is, the government have to settle before any election. question. They have to. They just have to. Guys, thank you very much indeed. Very fascinating listening to Nicola McLean and Alex Armstrong there. Thank you very much for coming along today. Come back and see us soon. Thank you.
Let's take a look at your forecast now.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
Hello, morning. I'm Marco Patagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see plenty of fine weather across the UK during the week ahead, although cloud will start to increase from the north later and temperatures will also start to recover after a chilly start. Back to the detail for this morning though, and we've got quite icy conditions down towards the southeast. A warning in force across parts of southeast England until 10 o'clock this morning. Do take care out and about on the roads with wintry showers moving in from the east. One or two showers up across parts of eastern and Northern Ireland there as well, but elsewhere across the UK it's set fair, fog and frost soon lifting to give plenty of sunshine, and those showers across the southeast migrate their way westwards as we go through the day across other southern counties of England, turning increasingly to rain as temperatures start to pick up, although it will be a chilly day, and that takes us into quite a chilly evening too. Those showers continue their way westwards into southwest England as we go through into the evening, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather around and turning frosty as we go through the evening under clear skies. So a pretty chilly start as we get into the early hours of Tuesday. Temperatures widely dipping down to, if not just below freezing. And again, a few fog patches in place as we go into the Tuesday morning itself. Through the day on Tuesday, the fog and frost will generally lift fairly readily. Plenty of sunshine around, but again, it will be staying quite cold. Even though it's early January, temperatures no better than 4 or 5 degrees during the afternoon. 5 Celsius is 41 in Fahrenheit, and that's several degrees below where they should be for the time of year. So certainly wrap up warm over the next few days. The cold weather is here, set to stay for a few days at least.
Looks like things are heating up. Boxed boilers, sponsors of weather on GB News.
...2024, a battleground year.
The year the nation decides.
As the parties gear up their campaigns for the next general election.
Who will be left standing when the British people make one of the biggest decisions of their lives?
Who will rise?
And who will fall? Let's find out together. For every moment, the highs, the lows, the twists and turns.
We'll be with you for every step of this journey.
In 2024, GB News is Britain's election channel.
GB News, unlike other broadcasters, isn't obsessed with the London-Westminster bubble. We think there's a nation beyond the M25, and that's why we talk about the issues that matter across the land. Join me on State of the Nation, 8 to 9 o'clock, Monday to Thursday, on GB News. Daisy's listening, and you should too.
Wake up to the headlines with headliners every morning at 5 a.m. We treat you to the day's biggest stories before anyone else, 7 days a week. You can catch up on everything you need to know before you've even had your kippers. Headliners every morning at 5 a.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Andrew Doyle. Join me at 7 o'clock every Sunday night for Free Speech Nation, the show where I tackle the week's biggest stories in politics and current affairs with the help of my 2 comedian panellists and a variety of special guests.
Free Speech Nation, Sunday nights from 7 on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Now then, Lee Anderson here. Join me on GB News on my show, The Real World, every Friday at 7 p.m.
I'm not eating bloody cat. Are you
Delicious.
mental?
Open your mouth. OK, here comes a train.
Reminds me of the scene in Singing in the Rain.
Adam, is that a good one?
Whoa! Join me at 7 on GB News, Britain's news channel.
What you get for breakfast is something that, if we do our jobs right, you will wake up to news that you didn't know the night before.
It's a conversation. It's not just me and Eamonn.
We want to get to know you, and we want you to get to know us.
From 6, it's Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
Monday to Thursdays on GB News,
Britain's news channel.
Have a great Saturday night with me, Leo Curse, on the Saturday Night Showdown. It's a crazy world out there, so come and make fun of it with me, my panel of comedians, and a couple of people who actually know what they're talking about. This Saturday Night Showdown is your front row ticket to the clown show every Saturday, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
every Sunday from 11. Join Michael Portillo.
There'll be topical discussion, looking at the week before and the week to come. So kick back and relax at 11 a.m. on Sundays on GB News with me, Michael Portillo. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
When the news happens, it happens here.
And really important breaking news.
Breaking news this morning.
On TV, radio and online, the news starts here on Britain's Newsroom.
All the biggest stories and the answers that you need from across the UK and beyond.
Join Britain's Newsroom from 9:30 on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Hello there, good to see you. It is 9 o'clock. It will be in 6 seconds anyway. On Monday, the 8th of January. This is Breakfast with Eamonn and Isabel.
And here's what's leading the programme this morning. A petition calling for the former post office boss Paula Vanells to be stripped of her CBE has surpassed 1 million signatures following the Horizon scandal revelations.
The decision on whether to strip Paula Vanells of her CBE is ultimately in the hands of the Honours Forfeiture Committee. But with pressure now mounting on all sides, will the disgraced former CEO of the Post Office take the initiative and simply hand back the honour?
We're also asking this morning, is Britain broken? A Labour demand, an election now to get the country fixed. Sir Keir Starmer says the Prime Minister is putting vanity before the country by delaying calls for a vote.
The deadline has expired for bankrupt Birmingham Council to outline a credible plan to address a budget gap totalling £300 million. That's as other struggling local councils across the country are pleading for more cash. And we'll have more on that on gbnews.com.
The first Monday of January traditionally sees a spike in the number of people petitioning for divorce. A relationship expert has been explaining why.
What's going to happen is that actually there will still be a large number of people, irrespective of the cost of living crisis, which is hugely florid at the moment, who will just simply say, emotionally, this is too much of a toll for me to take.
And the biggest names in Hollywood have turned out for the Golden Globes. The cast and makers of Oppenheimer were the big winners. Oppenheimer, I should say. Barbie, on the other hand, was snubbed.
And Marco Patanga has your weather.
We start to the day today with some wintry showers towards the southeast of England. There will be plenty of fine weather as we head into the afternoon. I'll have all the details later.
Keep them coming in. Your views very welcome. GBviews at gbnews.com, or you can tweet at gbnews.
Good morning. It's been described as the most widespread miscarriage of justice in British history. 700 post office branch managers were wrongly convicted of theft.
Now, we know it was all down to faulty software, yet most victims haven't yet received compensation. A television drama about the so-called Horizon scandal has sparked national outcry, and the Prime Minister has confirmed there will be a meeting later to create a settlement plan.
Well, more than 1 million people have signed an online petition calling for Paula Vanells, who led the post office when sub-postmasters were unfairly prosecuted, to be stripped of the honour.
Well, earlier we spoke to one of the victims of the scandal, former West Bolton sub-postmaster Christopher Head. We thought we'd ask him about Miss Vanells and should she go.
I think that obviously the reason that Paula Vanells is being singled out is because she was made aware on countless occasions of the problems. And obviously, she was in the position at that particular time to do something about it and failed to do so. So I think that is why that's been the case. But, you roll back over the years that, there is obviously people in Fujitsu. There is people in government or ministers or even, civil servants that maybe try to have damage limitation, let's say, in order to try and make this a hope that it will go away. So there's countless number of people. So you had previous CEOs at Post Office of Adam Crozier. The list is endless. So we need the inquiry to finish so we get to the bottom of that, and obviously for the Met Police to do their investigation.
Let's cross to Westminster. We speak to the Shadow Minister for the Environment, Food and Rural Affairs. That's Steve Reid. Steve, good morning to you.
Good morning, Eamonn.
Steve, we were talking there, the last item was this whole post office scandal, and terrible that it's taken a drama before the public to bring this to attention. What would you do?
Well, that's right. I mean, this is undoubtedly one of the gravest miscarriages of justice in British legal history. I had a constituent in my own patch in Croydon North who was affected and who I've spoken to as well. And people's lives were devastated by, frankly, a cover-up by the post office where innocent sub-postmasters were blamed for problems with the IT system. And because of that, they lost their jobs, their reputations, their savings, their pensions, and they deserve compensation. It's been over 20 years now. That justice cannot come fast enough. So what I hope will happen today is the Justice Secretary is having conversations. I think it would be a very interesting idea to bring forward legislation so that we could exonerate all of those who we now know beyond doubt were completely innocent of what they were convicted of, and deal with it that way. The alternative is that they would have to go individually to court, one by one, taking up goodness knows how much more time and resource. But we know already that what they were accused of, they had nothing to do with. They deserve that justice and they deserve that compensation as fast as it can come.
Yeah, so you agree then with the Prime Minister and the Justice Secretary on that. My question to you is, what about compensation for them? Who should be held accountable for this? Should the CEO lose her CBE in all of this? And what if compensating the victims ends up bankrupting the Royal Mail and the Post Office? And, you know, would Labour be the ones that should pick up the bill if you were in power? I mean, who exactly should be picking up the bill?
Well, it's the Post Office that was responsible for this. It's the Post Office that covered up the problem in the first place, the Post Office that led the prosecutions, and that is where we should be looking for compensation. Now, the government will be looking at the wider financial deal. I don't have access to that information right now, but we'll look at what they're proposing. Our intention would be we want that justice and that compensation delivered. These people deserve it. They lost everything. They need something back for all that they've lost. Many of these sub-postmasters have died of old age. It's gone on for so long, and we've even had, tragically, a number of suicides. So this does need to be resolved. I hope the government will be bringing forward a package, perhaps even later today, that we can then look at. Now, you asked about the honour that the former head of the Post Office received. My personal opinion is she should hand that back, given the scale of the disaster that she presided over and for which, therefore, she must carry responsibility. I do think it's an insult to the victims that she should retain that honour. Now, there's not a means to strip somebody of it in these circumstances, but I hope she'll do the decent thing and hand it back as a sign of her apology to those who suffered so badly at the hands of the Post Office on her watch.
There's a lot of people who agree with you, Steve, on that one. Steve, just looking at your position as the Secretary of State for Environment, Food and Rural Affairs, all of which tie in to this terrible flooding situation around the land. What would you say about that?
Well, I mean, it's absolutely devastating. I mean, many people have seen the images on your show, but it's so widespread. Many of us have seen what's going on with the flooding personally. I was up in Oxfordshire last week speaking to farmers whose crops are underwater, and it's going to destroy the crops and the seedlings that are started to grow for our food supplies next year. So that's under threat. Before that, I was up in Nottinghamshire and I visited the homes. I had, crying on my shoulder, a homeowner up there as we stood together and looked at how everything they own has been destroyed, unable to even get insurance for their home. Now, what is the problem causing all of this? Of course, it's the floods coming down, but the government has a responsibility to try and keep people safe from those rising levels of waters, the more extreme weather that we're seeing happening over recent years. And what the government has not done is properly coordinate between national and local government to make sure that funding that has been allocated for flood defences has actually been spent. So what Labour would do differently is we'd set up a flood resilience task force that would meet every year ahead of the winter months when the rains come down, and it would make sure that the agencies on the front line are putting in place, digging out the drainage systems, putting the flood defences up by the rivers. There's a scheme of natural flood management where you can plant more trees upriver that help the land retain and hold more water when it comes down, so it doesn't end up surging through the rivers. All of that would help. But when I was up in Nottinghamshire just a few weeks ago, the town of Retford had been allocated £11 £7.7 million for flood defences over the previous 2 years. They'd spent less than half of 1% of that money, and so people's homes, their businesses, their livelihoods were devastated. And it's avoidable. We just need better coordination between national government that allocates the money and the agencies on the front line that should be doing their best to protect people.
Steve Reid, I want to ask you about the tube strikes here in London. Lots of businesses had made provisions, closing their offices, people working from home. A deal was struck at the 11th hour. Now, a lot of GB News viewers and listeners will see that as Sadiq Khan bowing to the unions and a sign of what is to come under a Labour administration. What would you say to that?
Well, first of all, as a Londoner myself, I'm absolutely relieved that this strike isn't going ahead. It was going to be devastating for everybody that needed to get to work in the capital city today. So thank goodness it isn't going ahead. And actually, I would congratulate Sadiq Khan. I think he did the right thing, the grown-up thing, by getting round the table and having talks rather than inflicting this misery of tube strikes on everybody in London. Perhaps if the government had taken a grown-up approach like that, we wouldn't have had a year of misery with train strikes. We wouldn't have the ongoing strikes in the National Health Service. You have to sit down and you have to talk through these problems.
How is this money suddenly found? A lot of people will suspect that this is being funded by the expansion of ULEZ, for example.
Well, there's not a deal yet. They're just sitting down and talking. Let's see what comes out of the talks. If you don't talk, you get the industrial strife that causes a misery to so many of our fellow citizens, whether it's in London or up and down the country with the National Health Service. It's always better to talk than to let the strikes go ahead, because the public should never be left to suffer.
Steve, the situation about school truancy. You've got the Conservatives, basically nothing to say really about this. They say schools and the families is for them to sort out. What do Labour say as regards pupils saying, I don't feel up to it today, I'm not going to head in?
Well, I mean, first of all, this isn't just a problem we can afford to ignore, I think. So school absences are up by 40% since 2010, and that is devastating for young people who are not getting their education, because if they don't get the skills they need to get the good, well-paid jobs, their whole futures are damaged. They're never going to reach their potential. That damages all the rest of us too, because we need a highly skilled, highly educated workforce so that we can compete globally, so it damages the whole country. So what Labour's proposing is that we close the VAT loophole that allows private schools to avoid paying that tax, and we can use that to fund a mental health worker in every secondary school who can help to identify those issues of depression, early stage mental ill health in students that is often the cause behind them not turning up to school, engaging with the parents, engaging with the family, and supporting them to get the support they need to get back into school and keep getting their education. It pays for itself in the end, because if those young people get out and get a better job, they earn a bigger wage, they pay their fair share into the Treasury, we all and try and blame parents.
Yeah, just on that particular point, when you were talking about school fees there's a piece in The Telegraph by Nick Timothy today talking about Starmer's spending plans driving Britain to the brink of disaster, and he talks about the limited funds being raised from that and abolishing the non-dom tax status having been spent several times over, and there are lists of unfunded promises in dossiers that have been compiled and are ready to be published by CCHQ.
Well, I don't think I'll give much credence to anything said by Nick Timothy, who was one of the advisors to the disastrous Theresa May government, so I'd take anything he says with a pinch of salt. The truth is, every single commitment Labour comes out with will be fully funded. It was the Conservatives who crashed the economy by making tens of billions of pounds worth of unfunded commitments, and then they decided to make working people pay with 25 separate Tory tax hikes simply just since the last general election that have left us all facing the biggest personal tax burden since the Second World War. This country needs change. It won't come from more of the same with the Conservatives. It only comes with the election of a Labour government under Keir Starmer.
Well, we'll leave it there. Steve Reid, thank you. Steve is the Shadow Secretary of State for the Environment. Thank you very much indeed. Britain's Newsroom comes your way at 9:30 today with Andrew Pearce and Ellie Costello. Good morning.
Morning.
Morning to you both.
What have you got?
Got a packed show.
And nice to be with Eddie, I must say.
Yeah.
And we're coordinating, aren't we?
We are.
Nice.
Blue.
Morning.
Blue is the colour. We are talking, obviously, about the post office. We're talking to the Labour MP, Kevin Jones, who's exposed yet another strand to this extraordinary scandal. How back in 95-96 there was a pilot scheme for this dodgy Horizon IT scheme, and people working on that scheme were prosecuted. Even then, there were problems, and yet they went ahead with it. So we're asking, what went wrong? Why is Fujitsu getting off the hook, by the way? Why are they not picking up any of the compensation?
Well, more than that, why are they still being awarded contracts going forward and this allowed to happen in other cases?
Yes, the questions for Fujitsu. Also, Paula Venables, lots of talk about her and her CBE. Should it be stripped from her, or should she give it back with an apology, which many people are asking for today? Questions for Ed Davey as well, and what he knew as Postal Affairs Minister. So lots to talk about there. Also going to be talking about Kate Garraway, your colleague.
Yeah. I mean, because I was on Good Morning Britain this morning, and Eamonn, of course, worked very closely with Kate Garraway. She's a great girl, and it's been a horrific 3 years for the family. He was the longest, I think, surviving, most seriously ill victim of COVID, and how she's coping, and the extraordinary outpouring of affection for the family.
Just finally, what would it have taken for either of you two to miss school? We talked today about kids, if they're feeling a bit anxious or they've got a cough, they wouldn't turn up. Do you remember being forced to go to school? Yeah?
Yes.
I could never have a day off school.
Nor could I. Measles or chickenpox was acceptable because you had spots on your face and you were going to get infected. Otherwise, you went to school under pain of death. This is just ridiculous, the way they're carrying on now. COVID has changed everything, and I blame the parents for allowing it.
Yeah, I'd have to be at death's door. Both my parents are teachers, so I could never, ever stay at home. There wouldn't be anyone to look after me. No. So I was always dragged into school,
OK. Guys, thank you. Thank you very much indeed. Share your thoughts as well at home.
Coming up, we're going to be taking a little trip to Whipsnade Zoo. That's after this.
Your weekend starts here with Friday Night Live with me, Mark Dolan, 8 till 9 on GB News. Big stories, big guests and big laughs as we get you ready for a cracking weekend. That's Friday Night Live with Mark Dolan. Fridays 8 till 9 on GB News. Bring your own drinks. The admission's free.
In the GB Newsroom, we bring you the news as it happens. With our team of dedicated journalists across the UK, we're ready to give you accurate reporting every day. When the news breaks, we'll be there with bulletins on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be sharp takes you won't get anywhere else. We will set the news agenda, not just follow it, and I want to bring you along for the ride. Whatever it is, we'll have our finger on the pulse. It's news, but it's this close to entertainment. Patrick Christie's Tonight, 9 to 11 p.m, only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Join us every night on GB News at 11 p.m. for Headliners, which is 3 top comedians going through the next day's news stories, which is exactly what you need, because when the establishment has gone crazy, you need some craziness to make sense of it.
Headliners. You don't have to bother reading the newspaper. We've got it covered for you. Every night at 11 p.m. and repeated every morning at 5 a.m. We won't send you to sleep like some of the other paper review shows out there.
So join us 11 p.m. every night on GB News.
The People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I'm Michelle Dewberry, and I'm not here to tell you what to think. I'd much rather hear what you have to say. So send in your opinions to gbviews@gbnews.com. Keep them clean, and you never know, I might read them out. With my panel here on Jubes & Co, we debate, we get stuck into the issues of the day on a show where all views are welcome, especially yours. GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Tired of the usual focus-tested, pre-prepared Westminster runaround? Well, so am I.
So you want higher taxes?
Is your department to blame for this? Are you rethinking this policy? Every Sunday at 9:30, I'll be sitting down with those in power to get the truth about the issues affecting you.
Let's be honest, we've known about the cost pressures of this project for years, not months.
That's the Camilla Tominey Show, a politics show with personality. On GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
I think the most exciting bit for me is talking to people.
People who I think are ignored often by the major news channels. We're going to give news they want to hear. There's a voice there that needs to be heard. I think there's a chance here for a diversity of opinion to be expressed, which you don't find elsewhere. It's really exciting.
We don't hold back. We're free to say how decisions that are taken here
affect us all around the country. Only on GB News, the People's Channel, Britain's news channel.
Good afternoon, Britain.
Good afternoon, Britain. Join us, Tom and Emily,
To find out what's happening in the heart of Westminster.
and why it matters to you.
Weekdays from midday, we bring you the most compelling stories from across the United Kingdom.
And from your doorstep to our inbox.
That's right, we want to hear from you.
GB News,
Britain's news channel.
What better way to cheer up a foggy January morning than a trip to the zoo?
I feel like you need to burst into song at this moment. No?
We're going to the zoo. You
What
come
about
to.
you?
Ooh.
Anyway, Will Hollis is already there. He's at Whipsnade Zoo for us, and there's going to be a hive of activity. What's going on where you are today?
Good morning. Yes, a really cold Whipsnade Zoo today, where the people from ZSL are going to be counting up to 11,000 animals in the annual stock take. It's something that they have to do as part of their licence. We're here at the rhino enclosure right now, where we're waiting to count the white rhinos that are becoming into shot shortly, I hope. So you see in the background, there's a fantastic big green building. Right now it's 22 degrees in there. These rhinos are originally from South Africa. That's where they're native to. Do you know what it is right now, Eamonn and Isabel? It's 0 degrees, so it's quite tempting for them to stay inside, but they're coming for their breakfast and they're going to be counted. I'm told that there's going to be 7 rhinos here, so if there's one fewer, then something's gone seriously wrong. But Hayley, you're part of the team here. Just describe for me this annual stock take. How important is it to what you do here at ZSL and Whipsnade?
Yeah, so it's very important. So it allows us to keep our records up to date. We also can put all this information onto a global database called ZIMS. This allows other collections around the world to access the data, find out what species, what animals we've got here. That will then feed into conservation programs and breeding programs around the world.
So it's not just about making sure that no animals have gone missing, that everything is where it should be. It's actually about making sure that these animals can be here for future generations that might want to visit Whipsnade.
Exactly, yeah, it's all to feed into conservation breeding of these endangered species. So we do check our animals every day, make sure that they're happy, healthy, eating well. So we do have a rough idea of how many we've got, but this is kind of a formal stock take, so we can make sure that's all recorded correctly, and like I said, feeds into that global database.
We're told that there's going to be 7 rhinos. There actually, a few of them did start to come out, but I think it was so cold that they either went back inside to where it's 22 degrees, or they're actually just hidden under the brow of the hill. It's not just rhinos here. What attracts people to Whipsnade even on a cold day?
Yeah, so this time of year, it is a brilliant time to visit the zoo, even when it's 0 degrees like it is today. Some of the species up here absolutely love this time of year. So species like our red pandas, this is the best time of year to come and see them. Wolverine, lynx, they love this type of weather. So yeah, definitely worth a visit, even in the winter. Brave the cold.
There's warnings because of the cold right now. The UK Health and Security Agency, they're warning about an amber cold health alert, which means that particularly vulnerable people need to be careful. What do you have to consider with animals, particularly things like rhinos, which are used to much hotter temperatures than this?
Yeah, so like you mentioned before, the rhino house is actually kept at a constant 22 degrees, so I don't blame them for being a little bit slow at coming out today. So yeah, it's important that we maintain the temperatures in all the animal buildings, make sure they've got plenty of bedding and kept nice and warm.
We're told that the rhinos are coming out. I don't know if our cameraman can see. Can you see any animals on the horizons there? It reminds me of, I think there's an Only Fools and Horses sketch where they're out trying to search for the rhinos. We might be here for a few more minutes trying to figure out where the rhinos are. But it is 22 degrees in there, so you can understand why they might want to stay inside where it's a little bit warmer. Do you have a favourite rhino? There's 7 of them. Is there any that you really like that maybe are going to run over and grab a little bit of breakfast this morning?
So our male sizzle. He's probably the most confident of all the rhinos. So
let's take a walk to see if we can see any of them.
So I wouldn't be surprised if he wouldn't be the first one to come over. We did have breeding success in 2021 with our young female Nandi was born. So again, that's contributing to the conservation of this endangered species.
So you've had animals that have been born here from the rhino species?
Yes, yeah. So this is a breeding group, and Nandi was born in 2001, so she'll be 3 in August, I believe.
3 in August, fantastic. Now, I don't know if it's just because I can't count, but there's supposed to be 7 rhinos here. Eamonn, I don't know if we've sold you a lie, but I'm told that they are going to be counting rhinos here. I think our cameraman might be able to see one. Yeah, we might not have found rhinos for you today here at ZSL at Whipsnade Zoo, but I'm told that there are 7 rhinos here. They aren't wandering around the local Dunstable or Luton area.
I love it. It's just like going on safari and you think you're going to see the big 5.
Except they're no animals.
And they're all shy.
Yeah, we believe you. We believe the animals are there.
Thousands wouldn't.
Thank you. The Breakfast Show will be back same time tomorrow. See you then.
Up next, Britain's Newsroom with Andrew and Ellie. Have a great day.
Hello, morning. I'm Marco Petagna. Here's your latest weather update from the Met Office. We'll see plenty of fine weather across the UK during the week ahead, although cloud will start to increase from the north later and temperatures will also start to recover after a chilly start. Back to the detail for this morning, though, and we've got quite icy conditions down towards the southeast. A warning in force across parts of southeast England until 10 o'clock this morning. Do take care out and about on the roads with wintry showers moving in from the east. 1 or 2 showers up across parts of eastern and Northern Ireland there as well, but elsewhere across the UK it's set fair, fog and frost soon lifting to give plenty of sunshine, and those showers across the southeast migrate their way westwards as we go through the day across other southern counties of England, turning increasingly to rain as temperatures start to pick up, although it will be a chilly day, and that takes us into quite a chilly evening too. Those showers continue their way westwards into southwest England as we go through into the evening, but elsewhere a lot of dry weather around and turning frosty as we go through the evening under clear skies. So a pretty chilly start as we get into the early hours of Tuesday. Temperatures widely dipping down to, if not just below, freezing. And again, a few fog patches in place as we go into Tuesday morning itself. Through the day on Tuesday, the fog and frost will generally lift fairly readily. Plenty of sunshine around, but again, it will be staying quite cold, even though it's early January. Temperatures no better than 4 or 5 degrees during the afternoon. 5 Celsius is 41 in Fahrenheit, and that's several degrees below where they should be for the time of year. So certainly wrap up warm over the next few days. The cold weather is here, set to stay for a few days at least.
GB News is Britain's news channel, and now you can support it. All you have to do is scan that QR code that's up on your screen right now, or you can go to gbnews.com/support and become a GB News member. You'll have fantastic benefits. We're also going to organise special events where you as GB News members can meet the presenters, the on-screen faces. Scan the QR code or go to gbnews.com/support. Thank you so much.
Big news, big debates, big opinion. Patrick Christie's Tonight is the week's biggest show. Every weekday, 9 to 11 p.m, we've got the inside track on the day's top stories. There'll be